Yep, absolutely. All right, so always like just kind of starting off with a kind of, and we kind of did this in the chat a little bit, but just kind of feeling kind of where you're at, give me a little background, that sort of thing. Sounds like you've played Hearthstone semi-competitively, good like ladder grinding, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I
Um,
started way back when it came out in 2014. I played for a few months and I gave it up. I was doing WoW competitively, serious competitive, for a few years, and then that just dried out. So I went to Overwatch, and a couple guys played Hearthstone, so went to Hearthstone. And maybe a month or two ago, and just grind up from 25 up to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, something like that.
Sweet.
Really just get to the tier break points and stop to mess around with different decks. Um, I think I'm gonna make the push next into actual push into legend. So I mean that's my extent with card games. I like them. I find them intellectual, and this one even a little bit more so than Hearthstone, of course.
Yep, absolutely. There's a lot of intricacies to this.
Yeah. So I picked this up. I guess it was last week.
Yep,
Um, and just kind of been messing around since then.
makes sense. Perfect. Cool. A little bit of background on me, just so that we can kind of see where I'm coming from as well. So I've been playing Magic for probably 15-ish years. Long time. Really young, just like probably 8, 9 years old or so. Friends brought me to like a card store, and I'd never heard of the game. They gave us some like free to play decks, and we just like played super kitchen table casual. I really liked the game. And kind of just jumped into it at about like probably a year after like playing kitchen table like pretty casually for about a year. And then jumped into it. I had saved up a bunch of like allowance and stuff over like 6, 8 months. Like for a little kid, that was a long time. And like bought like a tier 1 competitive standard deck and was going to events 2, 3 times a week at my local store. Kind of jumping into it, trying to learn the game, be better at it, and actually play on a semi-competitive like level for a 10-year-old, right? Did that for a couple of years, kept up with the game, played, like I said, 2, 3 times a week sort of thing, pretty continuously. Probably when I think I was like 13 actually, when I went to my first like big in real life like over 1,000 people tournament. Because Star City Games, which is one of the big companies that runs some of those big tournaments, had one at like my local convention center. And so I went with a couple of the people I knew from the card store, played. I actually ended up like top 64ing that tournament, which was hilarious because I was like 13. And that like big push of like, cool, I played in a big event really like just hooked with me, and I was like, oh, this is what I want to do, right? And so I went pretty full force where like anytime I had the ability to like travel, which wasn't frequently being like a high school kid, I would travel and go to events and stuff. College came around, and I literally spent my freshman year of college where I made my schedule where I had Monday through Thursday I had classes, and then I always had Friday, Saturday, Sundays off, and I would travel to an event, either like a Pro Tour qualifier on a weekend in town, or if there was any Grand Prix basically in North America, I would either fly or drive to it Friday, play in it Saturday, Sunday, and come back Sunday night and be there for classes Monday morning. And did that almost a full year straight. Racked up a good chunk of pro points, that sort of thing. So very, very competitive, like push into the game, more so than just like every once in a while, like I just want to be good at this game, sort of thing. And then life kind of hit. I ended up getting married, settled down a little more, couldn't travel as much. Bills, finances, that sort of thing kind of got in the way, which
things,
makes sense because I got to be an adult. And then so I switched to Hearthstone, being able to play at home and not travel and that sort of thing. But I was really looking for something competitive wise that wasn't just grind ladder endlessly forever. And I saw like a Reddit post, I think it was, of a thing called Team Hearth League.
Oh yeah.
Which is a team-based Hearthstone like league that made it to where like you basically had seeded players based on your ladder rankings. And so your best ladder ranking player would be your 1 seed, your worst ladder ranking player would be your 5 seed, and then you had like a player based off your ladder rankings, they give you like a player rating, and then as you play your matches over the course of the week as like a team, your 1 seed, who's the best player in your team's match, equaled just as much as the worst player on your teams, right? And the worst player was always playing against the worst player, and so on.
Yeah.
Which made it to where, even though I was new to the game and was competitive, like jumping into it, I was able to like be competitive and like play in something that was really cool. So I jumped into that, like their alpha season, like their first like testing season they ever did. There was 4 teams of 5 people, so it was 20 people. And then within the first, I think it was about 3 seasons in, so we did like an alpha beta, and then like we called it a kappa season because we wanted, like, it wasn't quite where we wanted it to be, and we're still making lots of changes. But I jumped into the board of that and actually helped basically kind of create it kind of from the ground up. When I left doing that about a year or so ago, and it's still up and running and stuff. I just passed it off. I just didn't have the time to commit to running the whole thing. We were pushing about 700 players.
Oh wow.
As like a free-to-play competitive, like team-based thing, which was super cool. So lots of background with Magic and being able to coach and help players, because it was a lot of like bringing in players who very rarely had played and having that kind of experience with it too. And then Arena came out, and I was like, yep, I'm going back to Magic, because now I can play Magic without traveling, and I'm all about it. So, besides that, like every month I've attempted to hit Mythic or top 1000 Mythic for like the qualifier stuff. I've done it. I haven't grinded it out every month because it's basically every other month matters. So like last month I barely played at all, and this month I'm basically there. And I've barely played this month either. So pretty competitively, have lots of knowledge on the game, archetypes, just ground level stuff, because I've been involved in it for 15-ish years. And yeah, being able to have that Hearthstone background to kind of tie it in, it's going to be real nice, because having any sort of card game background makes it really easy to transition into it. You'll see a lot of similarities. So
yeah, that's what it looked like, and that's why I'm not saying I've picked up a lot, but I'm winning more than I'm losing.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's at the lower ranks anyway.
Right, but it's still like is good feelings. So sweet. If you want to start with a screen share, we'll just kind of go over some basic good stuff, I guess. So let's just go into play, and let's go into a bot a game against like one of the bots with literally any deck. It doesn't matter. You just hit play. The first thing I kind of want to go over from just a ground level, make sure you understand how it works and how button controls specifically in Arena work, because it will end up mattering. You just go ahead and just keep this is fine. So, and this gives the reason we're going into bot matches. There's no time limits, and we're not rushing or anything like that. So, first couple of things, and I'm sure you've picked it up. You have your lands versus your stuff, right? Your lands give you your resources, just like mana in Hearthstone. The biggest difference is that in Hearthstone, you get one every turn. You're not guaranteed that. I'm sure you've noticed.
Oh yeah. I've noticed.
That is, in all honesty, most people's biggest complaint with Magic is that you're not guaranteed lands every turn. But that is something that does matter. As you notice with card symbols. Okay. Yeah. Some people really like it. I think it's fine. It doesn't bother me. Some people absolutely hate it. Yeah. It's whatever.
Well, it makes you think a little bit more about your moves and
deck building and that sort of thing. Exactly. So yeah, I agree. As for mana costs on cards, looking at like your hand, like the vampire on their far left is just 1 black, just takes 1 swamp. The thing next to it, the blood burglar, is 1 swamp and 1 of anything. As I'm sure you've picked up. Yep. I'm just gonna go over all the things just to make sure.
Absolutely.
Vice versa, like the 4 mana card and the 6 mana card you have you need 2 swamps and 2 of anything, or 2 swamps and 4 of anything. So 6 total or 4 total. So you do just slowly progress, just like any other, just like Hearthstone, where you have more mana as you go. The big thing that I wanted to touch on was how turns are played in the sequencing of things. Okay, because that's one of the hardest concepts to kind of grasp, because in Hearthstone, the turn is literally just do whatever you like. You draw your card at the beginning and you get your mana, and then everything else just goes until you hit the pass button. Right, and you can do anything kind of in any order you want, whether you attack and then you play something, and then you attack and then you play something, however you want, right?
Yep.
In Magic, that is not how that works. There's there's what we call phases. I'm going to type them into our chat just so that way you have them in the order that it happens. Okay. So untap, upkeep, draw, main phase 1, and I'm going to go combat with some brackets next to it. Or I'm going to do a colon, and then I'm going to start with brackets. So combat, which has phases in itself, which is start of combat, which then goes, so I'm trying to name all the official names of them too, just so that way you know if I refer to something. So start of combat, declare attackers, declare blocks, blockers, the damage phase, end of combat, and then you go into main phase 2, which is its own separate main phase 2. Okay. Your turn will always go in this sequence. Every single turn, regardless of what you do. Okay. And I'm going to kind of edit these as we go. So there are some of them that you cannot do anything in. It just happens. Like your untap step. Your untap step will, when somebody passes the turn, it goes into your turn. The very first thing that happens is all your things untap. They turn vertical, right? Tapping is like if you use a land, how it turns sideways. That is what we consider tapping something, because you are utilizing it. You're using its ability. Or if you attack with something, you're tapping it to attack. You're using it for that turn. If that makes sense.
Yep.
So you untap everything. Then you go to your upkeep. Your upkeep is something that you can. So what I'm going to do, untap, edit. You cannot do anything here. Your upkeep you can. Both. So let me just backtrack. So here's all your phases. The reason why this is important is on most of these, with some exceptions like the untap phase, every time you go in and out of one, you kind of play hot potato with your opponent, because your opponent can respond on your turn. Okay. What I mean by that is when it's your turn, you always start each phase with priority, which is you have the ability to do whatever you want and your opponent can't do anything yet. Okay. But as soon as you do anything, or say I don't want to do anything, you give your opponent the potato, and now they have the option of doing something, right? So an example is like if you played your swamp, right, and you play your Vampire of the Dire Moon, your 1-drop creature, right? When you say, cool, I'm going to play this vampire, your opponent then has the ability to do something before the vampire actually comes in, right? They have a way to respond. Now it does that not only when you do something, but also when you're going between the phases. So sometimes it's important to kill something before your opponent draws their card for the turn, right? So you can do that in your upkeep, right? So before I draw, I can say, cool, I want to do something on your upkeep, on my opponent's turn on their upkeep, and I'm going to kill something before you draw. And while at the beginning of their upkeep, they might go, cool, I don't have anything I'm doing on my upkeep. What would you like to do? Or am I okay to go to you kind of have to ask permission to go to the next step. Is it okay if I go to my draw step? And if they say yes, then you just draw your card and so forth, right? But if they say, nope, I want to do something, they have full right to do something, okay? Now, in the interface, the way you do that, so if you look next to each person's like heads and their life totals, there's like right now on your side, there's that little orange box that's kind of glowing. It looks like a card.
Yeah.
So there's kind of yep, that's your main phase. If you go to the little diamond next to it, that's going to be your upkeep, right? And vice versa. So and it does that on your opponent's side as well. So you can see there's kind of a diamond. So if you click on that where it says stop on opponent's upkeep, it's now highlighted, right? When you go to your opponent's turn, so let's go ahead and just play your swamp and play your Vampire of the Dire Moon, because we can. And then we'll just pass the turn. And now if you notice, he hasn't drawn his card yet. Then you hit pass, and then he drew his card.
Yeah.
So what you did is you stopped him before he drew his card, which gives you the ability of doing something on his turn. So that's how you would do that in the game. Okay. If you're ever playing in paper, you just say, I'm going to pass my turn, and then before you draw, right, and they just don't draw yet. You just have to verbally tell them. In the game, you verbally tell them by clicking the button.
Okay.
And you can do that with any of those phases. So the upkeep at the end of it, you can do something. At the draw, you can do something. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything where you can't do something at the end of it or the start of it. So actually, it's literally just that and then pass turn. So like you get to the end step, you can do things, and then both players say, "Cool, I'm done doing things," and then it just goes to their turn. Right. So it's just the very first thing and the very last thing are the only ones you can't respond between.
Okay.
Okay. Now the other place where this is important is combat. So if you notice, there's kind of a couple of steps in combat. Basically, once you're done playing cards, and you won't see that in your little list of things to stop, it'll just do it automatically for you. Okay. So I actually think go ahead and hit pass. So go to let's let your opponent do your thing, but I'll show you here. So he's gonna play his cards, and then go and just hit. So right now, if you read, it says next and then to combat, right? So we're in main phase 1.
Yep.
If you hit next, it's gonna go to your combat. So now it went from start of combat, and it's immediately going choose your attackers. So you can click your attackers button. So go ahead and just like declare it, and you can hit attack. And now it's immediately giving him the ability to block. Now, if you notice, it didn't give us any options to do anything in between this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a way to tell it too. So what you're going to do, go ahead and play your swamp and go ahead and play another creature, like your blood burglar or your vampire, doesn't matter which one. And then we're going to pass the turn, and when it comes back to us, we're going to do something a little different this time. Just because controls in this game are kind of wonky. So, in general, it's very rare that the game thinks, rather, that it's very rare that you're going to do things in those steps. Okay? That there's anything that matters in those time frames. So it auto kind of defaults to just going quickly to try to help the game go fast, right? To pick up the pace of play. If you ever need to do something very specifically on a very specific timing that you can, because we've labeled out where you can do things, what you can do is if you do left control and left shift at the same time, and just click them and then let go.
Click who? Him?
So on your keyboard,
Yep.
you're gonna left click you're gonna click, press down on the keyboard, the left control button and the left shift button on your keyboard. So just press them both down and then let go, and it should tell us full control kind of above. Should be
Left control and left shift.
I'm gonna hold on. It should be those two buttons. It might just be try just left control. There it goes.
Oh, there it is. Just control.
Cool. So it says full control currently. Hold on. Give me a second.
Sure.
Because I think it's phrase. Because there's two kind of full controls, and I want to make sure that's the right one. Like I said, the client is kind of wonky because there's a lot going on. Hold on. I'm jumping into a bot game so I can just click the buttons and make it do what I want it to do.
Is this what you're looking at? This here? Hold
Yeah. So, and then we want hold full control. So shift plus control.
And control.
So it should be both at the same time. I usually do like control and then there it goes. Perfect. So when you get that, what that does, it says for the rest of my turn, or until I tell it not to, which is just pressing control to tell it not to, I am going to every time I cast something, I'm going to be able to respond to the own things I cast. Every time I attack with something, I'm going to be able to respond every single little step I possibly could do. Which means you're going to hit that pass button or the next button a lot more times, which means the game's going to go a little bit slower and longer, but it does give you more control, right? Okay. The other thing with that is whenever you're playing like creatures, so if you try to play your vampire opportunist, it's actually going to say, okay, that's fine. So if you notice, it says, do you want to let this resolve? So right now, you could actually, if you had the mana in like an instant, you could actually do something before this hits the battlefield, right? You can respond to yourself.
Okay. What would be the case that I'd want to do
that? If you have something on the field that says like whenever you cast a vampire, deal 1 damage to something, right? So you're gonna cast your vampire, it's gonna deal 1 damage to something, which you don't have anything that does that right now. But like as a scenario, right? Deal 1 damage to something, and let's say you had something else in your hand that said like deal 1 damage to something, right?
Okay.
And now you get to kill something before your thing comes in, which could, if there's something that's like preventing you from playing that card, would be good, right?
Makes sense.
It's very rare that you're going to need to do that, but it's important to know that you have the ability to.
Okay.
Go and just hit resolve, and now your creature's going to come into play because your opponent's not responding to anything. Now, if we hit next to go to combat, now watch how this is different than before. So now it says, cool, now we're in start of combat, right? We haven't actually declared any attackers, and you could do something here, right? It's waiting for you to say, hey, are you done doing stuff? Yep, we don't have any mana, so we're done doing stuff. So we're going to go next, and it's going to go, cool, now go ahead and choose your attackers. So, yep, we attack. Go ahead and hit one attack. Cool, now it says, cool, now before I let him block, is there anything you want to do? Cool, now we can hit next. Now he can choose if he wants to block or not. Cool, he doesn't. And you're like, cool, I don't want to do anything since after he's declared blocker, so now I'm going to attack. Or deal the damage. Now, why that's important from just... And this is more relevant than the, like, when you cast something, you can respond to yourself. Because if you have something that says, like, give your creature +2 attack, right? And if his creature he had right there was a 1 attack, 3 defense creature, right? If he doesn't block, you might not want to cast that spell, right?
Yeah.
But if he does block, then you want to cast it so you can kill his creature.
Yeah.
Right? So what you do is you put it in full control. So after he says he's blocking, before damage happens, you can cast your spell on your guy to make it bigger so you can kill his thing.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And vice versa. Like sometimes, like when you're blocking, it's nice to do that. Like if they have a bunch of abilities and stuff they can do, being able to say, cool, I want to, in case they do activate or do something ability of something they have, I want to be able to respond to that. It gives you that ability too. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So a couple of just weird control-y things in the game. Otherwise, everything else is pretty much, like, the interface is actually really good for Magic. From going from a paper to a cart to digital form. Like, this is the only kind of wonky thing. But, yeah, otherwise, I think that's it from a kind of how the turn's going to work and then how to choose when you want to do things, and then priority, which are kind of the 3 big things of somebody new to the game, because there's a lot going on a turn, right? You always have to attack in the middle of your turn. Your main phases, so from just so that way you kind of know what the phases do, right? Your untap is where you're going to untap all your things. Your upkeep is literally just a point so that way somebody can do something before you draw, whether that's you or your opponent. Okay. Your draw is obviously where you draw. Now, from a card type standpoint, you have creatures, which are your creatures. You have your lands, which let you make your mana. There's instants, and there's sorceries. And there's a couple other ones, but we're gonna stick with those 4 main ones for now. Okay. The big difference between instants and sorceries are not going to, they can't attack, right? They're not creatures. They're not something that comes on the field and does something. But they're spells. If you think about like D&D, they're kind of like wizards that are just they cast a fireball. Right, it's a spell just like in Hearthstone.
Yep.
The thing is the big difference between them is instants. You can do at any point you have priority, whether it's your turn or your opponent's. Okay. So anytime your opponent does something and they give you the potato, you have priority. That you can cast an instant at any point in time. So if they say I'm going to play this creature, before that creature comes in, you have the ability of casting any of those instants on your opponent's turn.
Okay. That makes sense.
Sorceries can only be played during main phase 1 and main phase 2. There's not any other point in the game where they can be played. And it's your main phase 1 and your main phase 2. So typically, a sorcery is going to be a little bit more powerful at the same mana cost, but you can't do it on your opponent's turn, so it's less flexible. So if you have a 2 mana black spell that kills something and that's a sorcery, and a 2 mana black spell that kills something that's an instant, typically the sorcery will be able to kill anything. Well, the instant's going to be like, cool, kill it if it's X, Y, and Z, if it meets these requirements.
Okay.
Right? So it's a little bit more limited, so it's to try to balance it. So that way one's not just significantly better than the other in all scenarios.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, with that, I'm going to use some terminology called it instant speed and at sorcery speed. Okay? Sorcery speed means you can only play it just like it's a sorcery during your main phase 1 or your main phase 2. Okay? Instant speed would be you can do things at any point in time that you have the potato. You have priority. Right? So, if you look at your vampire opportunist that you have on the field, it has an ability on it that for 6 mana and 1 black, so 7 total, you can have each opponent lose 2 life and you gain 2 life. Okay, so if you had 7 mana, you could activate that. Those type of abilities, you can use at any point at instant speed. So you can do that on your turn. You can do that on your opponent's turn. You can do it at the end of the turn, the beginning of their turn, when they attack you, whenever you want, as long as you have the potato. Okay? That does not have to be something you do on your turn. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Um,
I
now,
have a question. The things that are say
yes.
each opponent. I mean, there's only one
Yes.
opponent.
Yes. So that's because it is a paper game that's coming over to digital.
Okay.
On Arena, you're always only ever going to play against one person. There's no multiplayer, like more than one person versions of the game.
Okay.
In the paper version, and like literally all these cards are exact same in paper and in
That's
the
what
digital
I figured.
form.
Yeah.
Yep, they're the exact same. So there's a very popular casual format called Commander, which is a 4-player free-for-all. That your deck is 100 cards, and each card has to be different from every other card in your deck. You can only play one copy of each thing. Okay. And in that scenario, you have 3 opponents. It's you versus 3 people, right? In which case, you say each opponent, so all 3 of those people would lose 2 life, and then you gain the 2.
That makes sense.
Right?
I figured it had something to do with the paper version.
Yep. So that's why it says each. In online, it's always just going to be your one opponent, but you'll see some phrasing like that specifically for that multiplayer format. Make sense?
Yep, makes sense.
Cool. Let me look at the Thirsting Bloodlord and the Grave. Try to see if I have some the 2 cards in your hand. Okay. Okay, those do it. All right, let's go ahead and just leave this game. We can go ahead and just hit the button and concede. We're not worried about winning or losing because we're playing against the robot.
Yeah.
But I want to show some other like kind of specific cards so you can kind of see how different things will interact. Give me a second here. So go ahead and go into decks at the top middle, and then just go ahead and create a new deck. We're not actually going to make a new deck, but I want to be able to just search for cards. First thing we're going to do is we're going to hit the little filter button. It's kind of the 3 lines on the far right. And we're going to check the not collected button, because in case you don't have things, which you probably won't, you'll be able to see what I'm looking for. So the first thing we're going to type in is Teferi, T-E-F, E-R-I, I believe.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. Boom. And then let's look at the Teferi Time Raveler, the 3rd one in.
Yeah, I was looking at Metadex and
you saw a lot of these?
Tier 1. Yeah, I saw a lot of Teferis.
Yep. So I'm going to kind of...
The Time Raveler.
Yep. So I'm going to explain what this does, because this card looks very different than everything else you're probably familiar with. Okay. So we started off, there's actually, I think there's 9 different types of cards. Okay. Like your lands, you have your creatures, you have your instants, you have your sorceries. Okay. The next one we're going to go over is going to be planeswalkers. Okay. So this one is, what this does is it's basically when you play this card, you're adding a second player to your game. Okay. Is how I like to think of it. So when you play this card on the field, in the bottom, you'd pay a blue, a white, and 1, so 3 total to play him, right? In the bottom right, that little 4, that's his life total. Okay.
Yeah, I've got. I got one in the deck that has this on, and one in.
Oh, perfect.
Aggro red.
When your opponent is attacking you, and you have these, they can choose for each creature whether they want to attack your planeswalker or you. Okay. If your planeswalker takes 2 damage, it'd go from 4 counters to 2 counters. Just like your life total would. When it hits 0 or anything below that, it dies and goes to your graveyard. And then once per turn, you can activate one of the plus or one of the minus abilities as long as you have enough counters for it. If your Teferi has exactly 3 counters, you can use the -3. It's just going to die when you do it. But you'll still get to do whatever that effect is. Make sense?
Yep.
All the planeswalkers have wildly different abilities and stuff, but that's in a nutshell how they operate. The next one we can look at is actually artifacts. In the bottom left corner is that little Teferi Sentinel. Okay, it says it's an artifact creature. So artifacts is sometimes they're creatures, sometimes they're not. They're just typically they're just like big metal things, is why they're considered artifacts. The reason they're important, they don't do anything special like instant or a sorcery. Typically, I'd say 99% of the time, unless the card says otherwise, you will always play them at sorcery speed. Okay. So if you have a non-creature artifact, so if let's just delete Teferi and we can just search for artifact and it'll pull up some artifacts so you can kind of see some that aren't creatures. CT. The search is very specific. All right. And that's fine. And go ahead and hit the right arrow button a couple of times because I want to find one that's not a creature. So it's going to be. I'll explain. Yeah, we'll explain stuff. Keep go. There we go. Tezzeret's gate. Go back one. Yeah, that guy. The Tezzeret Gatebreaker. So this one just says it's just an artifact, right? So when you play this, it's not a creature, so it can't attack. It's not an extra player, so it's not like a planeswalker, right? It's just gonna kind of sit on the side and kind of do its own thing. In Hearthstone, you have. I'm trying to think of a good example. You know the Warlock quest that when you like discard so many things, you get a portal that like summons like 2/2s every turn.
Yeah.
Or like little imp guys. And it sits there and your opponent can't do anything with it. Once it's on the field, like they can't kill it. It doesn't die. It just sits there and kind of does its thing, right? That's kind of how artifacts that aren't creatures work, is they sit there and they do their whatever the card on it says it does. And they have wildly different abilities. Sometimes this one like makes it to where creatures can't be blocked. It also lets you kind of look at some cards and try to get more stuff, right? Each one does just wildly different things from one another, but whatever the effect says, they're just going to sit on the side. They're not going to attack. They're not going to block. They're not doing really damage unless that's what that card does, right? But they're just going to kind of sit there like a portal and do whatever the card says it does. And your opponent's not really going to interact with them. Okay. Now, there are cards that exist that say destroy an artifact. So if you go back to the very first page of this thing, I believe like some of those first white ones that we were looking at, so disenchant, third one in, destroy an artifact or an enchantment, right? So this could blow up that gateway thing we were just looking at.
Okay.
Right. So there are cards that do remove it. They're pretty far and in between. Artifacts are one of those things that like people don't really have play cards that kill them because there's so few of them. And typically, if they're good, they're going to be more of a creature, and that's also an artifact, than being just something that sits there. Okay. Just from a balancing standpoint, you're never going to see something that's just going to kind of sit there and win you the game. It's very rare. Like if you notice, it has a 5 attack and 5 defense. This one's actually kind of a creature. This is kind of a complicated card.
I was looking at that.
So this has a thing. So there's two parts to this. One is it says it's a vehicle, and there's this crew 4. Okay. So every set of magic. Hold on. Let me think of the best way to kind of explain it. So there are what we call keywords on cards. Okay. Keywords are kind of the things that just like where it says crew 4. That is a keyword. Or flying is a keyword. First strike is a keyword. Vigilance it's like one word that means a lot of stuff.
Sure.
Okay. There are a handful of keywords that we call evergreen. Okay. I'm gonna type these out for you too. So keywords. The evergreen ones. Evergreen. So what that means is every single set there are going to be creatures that are going to have these keywords on it somewhere in the set. Those are going to be things like flying, first strike, and we'll go over what each one of these do. Vigilance, trample, flying, first strike, vigilance, trample. I'm missing one. Flying's blue, first strike, death touch. Death touch. So those are your evergreen keywords. Those are things that every single set that comes out, there's going to be some amount of creatures that are going to have them. And on addition to that, so since we're going to see, just for a consistency's sake, just so that way everything kind of has the same wording on it. Whenever new sets come out, though, typically each color is going to have a keyword associated with it on top of the evergreen ones. That's only going to exist for the one set. Okay. So in this case, when this set came out, there was a keyword called crew. Okay. And whenever you hover over a card, it actually gives you this breakdown of what each one of those keywords does. So it tells you what flying does, it tells you what first strike does, it tells you what vigilance does, it tells you what crew does. So if you don't know what a keyword does, you can always hover over it and it'll tell you, which is nice, right? In this case, crew makes it to where if you have a creature on the battlefield that's like so you play this on the field, it sits there, it's doing its thing. It's not a creature at the moment. Okay, it's just a legendary artifact that's a vehicle that's just sitting on the side, just like any other artifact. Okay, but at any point in time, you can take a creature that has 4 power or more and use it to basically steer the ship. That's kind of what the theme of this was. Is like, I'm going to take this creature, and he's now the captain of the ship, and he's going to drive it. And when he drives it, you tap it, it's going to become a 5/5 creature that can now attack, right? And then when it attacks, you have this big block of text in the middle. It says you're going to get some angels too. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense.
So there's a lot of keywords. I'm not going to go over all of them because you have this kind of shortcut of tells you what it does. But the important ones are those evergreen because those are the ones that you're going to see forever. So flying, as you can see, says that when you attack with it, if your opponent has, like, let's say you have a 2 attack, 2 defense flying creature, and your opponent has a 4 attack, 4 defense creature that doesn't have flying. When you attack, your opponent cannot block you because your thing doesn't have flying. You're in the air, it can't touch you. Okay. Does that make?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. First strike. So this is kind of I'm gonna jump into. I'm just getting confused because my Discord's in full screen. Cool. So in our little phases, right, where we have damage, that damage phase. Okay, this is where first strike matters. Is basically what it does is there's actually 2 damage phases. I'm gonna hyphen. So you do first strike, then normal. I can type correctly. Cool. So what it does is, let's say you have a 2 attack, 2 defense first strike creature, and your opponent has a 2 attack, 2 defense normal creature. You attack with your first strike, and he blocks. Okay. Now normally it's a 2 attack versus a 2 defense on both sides, right? So both would die. They just kill each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is when it goes to see, okay, we're going to deal damage. It says my first strike damage is going to happen before anything else does any damage anywhere, and then I'm going to check to see if things are dead. So your first strike creature does his damage first. He strikes first, hits the 2 defense creature on your opponent's side, and it just dies. Now that it's dead, it goes, cool. Now we're going to see anything that has normal damage, let them do their damage to their opponent, right? And it goes, well, that guy's dead already, so it can't deal damage. It's already dead. So your 2 attack, 2 defense first strike creature will always kill a 2 attack, 2 defense non-first strike creature. Or if you have a 2 attack, 2 defense first strike creature, right? And they attack you with a 7 attack, 2 defense creature. Okay? You block it. It's going to do first strike first. So you're going to deal 2 damage to his 7/2. His 7/2 is just going to die. And then it goes, cool. Now, can that 7/2 deal damage? No, it's dead. Okay. And your 2 attack, 2 defense creature is still alive. Does that make sense?
Okay, so the first one, is it not actually taking damage on its first?
Yeah, I'll show it. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna kind of show you here. So I want you to search for what is a good creature that has first strike for you to see that doesn't have like.
I've got.
Oh.
I know I've used them.
Okay, search Goblin Chain Whirler for me. This is one that you would see in a lot of decks. Chain Whirler, one word. You're gonna filter so you for on
Goblin, right?
Yeah, Goblin, and then filter. I don't have it. It's 3 mana. Yeah, Goblin, and then space Chain, and it'll probably come up. So 3 mana, red, red, red. So this guy. He is a 3 attack, 3 defense, first strike creature. Okay. If you attack me with him, okay, and I block with. Let's see, I'm gonna send you a picture of another card here, just so that way you can kind of like visually see cards and. see what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna just grabbing screenshots here. Save. And I just saved that to here. This guy. Okay. So you attack me with him. And I block with this Swift Claw that I just screenshotted to you.
Okay.
Okay. How do you think this happens? From what I explained. And then I'll tell you, then I'll kind of clarify if it's wrong.
Well, the way I think I took it was, it would attack on first strike, it would die, the Swift Claw. Now, what I'm confused is the Chain Whirler not taking that 3 damage? Does it live through
Correct.
that? Okay.
Yes. Because what happens is it says, cool, the Chain Whirler does his damage, it kills the Swift Claw, and then it goes, cool, is there anything else? Because, like, let's say you attack with 5 creatures, right? And he blocks with 5 creatures, okay? And Chain Whirler is the only thing with first strike on the whole board, right?
But if
it's
first strike,
it deals the damage before any other creature does.
So in Hearthstone, it would be something like a Wind Fury with Divine Shield. That the first one doesn't matter, but it hits it anyway.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
Except that
that's a good
target anyway.
Right. Assuming you hit the same thing.
Yeah.
Yep. So it does. Yeah, Wind Fury. So but the Chain Whirler is only ever going to do 3 damage. It's not like Wind Fury where it does 3 and then 3. Right.
Well, then I guess that's where I was confused, because after it kills the 3, I guess what's after that? Because with first strike you said it hits it, it would kill.
So
this,
if Chain Whirler,
nope,
it just does nothing else. It just kills it and that's it.
Okay.
So it's just like, so if it didn't have first strike, if Chain Whirler just attacked and then I blocked with the Swift Claw, right? Both would just die. Okay. They would just deal 3 damage to each other. They both just die. Okay. Right. The difference is that first strike says Chain Whirler does its damage before Swift Claw does. In which case, the Chain Whirler is going to kill the Swift Claw because they're not dealing the damage at the same time, right? It's one happens, then the other.
Okay.
So it's kind of like Chain Whirler is going to cast like a Frostbolt onto the Swift Claw, right?
Yep.
It's going to just shoot it for damage before the Swift Claw can hit it. But that's its attack. Now, if it doesn't block, then you're just going to hit your opponent for 3 just like you normally would. Like it doesn't have first strike.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah. First strike's one of those like weird, like, yeah, there's kind of like a second combat, but there's not.
Yeah, because like I said, I was running something with first strike and didn't really
understand what it was doing.
It just happened fast. It just attacked. And I'm like, hey, that should have died. But it lived.
But it didn't. Yep. Because that's what first strike does. It says, I'm dealing my damage first. Now, if let's say I blocked with a 3 attack 4 defense creature, okay, what would happen is your Chain Whirler would deal 3 damage to my 3/4, right? So I'd have 1 life left. And then it goes, cool, now deal your normal damage, and your Chain Whirler's already dealt his damage. He's not dealing any more, right? And then my 3/4 would hit the Chain Whirler, and Chain Whirler would die, and mine would live.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep, that makes sense.
It's still just 1 instance of damage for each of them. But it just does it first.
Okay.
Cool. Trample. Or no, Vigilance. Vigilance is next on my list. Vigilance means when it attacks, it does not tap.
Yeah, that one I figured out.
Yeah, the relevance there is that when your things are tapped, you can't block. So Vigilance lets you attack and block every single turn, which is nice. Trample. So let's say your same scenario where I have my Swift Claw and you have your Chain Whirler. Let's say instead of first strike, it had trample. Okay. When I block any damage that's left over from killing it, so you only need to deal 1 damage to kill my Swift Claw, right? So you have 2 damage left over. That leftover damage, if it has trample, will hit me. So if I block with my Swift Claw, my Swift Claw is going to die, and I'm going to take 2 damage.
Makes sense.
Okay. Death Touch. If you deal any damage at all to anything with that creature, it dies.
Poisonous.
Yep. Exactly. And those are your evergreen. Those are the ones you're going to see all the time on lots of different things. There's a couple of kind of, I'm going to call them like half evergreen things you're going to see a lot of, but aren't in every single set, which are Defender and Reach. Defender means it is a wall and you can't attack with it ever. You can block and do anything else the card says. You just can't attack.
That's one that's got like the little castle icon when it comes out.
Yes, yeah. So yep, exactly. And then the last one is reach. Reach is my creature doesn't have flying, but it can block something with flying.
Yeah.
So my favorite thinking of it is it's like a spider, right? It's never going to fly and catch the bird. Like it's never going to fly over the rabbit on the ground, right? But it can still catch the bird, which is flying. Yep.
It's funny that I'm out sober when it happens to be a spider.
It's most of the things you'll see with reach are going to be some form of insect or something that lives in a tree, because that's just kind of the flavor of reach.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, like there's a dinosaur with a really long neck. Okay, it doesn't fly obviously, but it can get all the way up there.
That's pretty cool.
Yep. Cool. So those are the important like need to know card effects, I guess, like things that cards do. The last kind of one I want to show you is the tap symbol. Let me see if I can find a card that has something on it that does that, because they're not on everything. But so okay, so you remember that activated ability that we had on your vampires that was like 7 mana that you could do whenever you wanted, right?
Yeah.
So that, if you noticed, it didn't have... Okay, so search Memorial to Genius. Memorial to Genius. Should be a land. Yeah, I think you typed it right. You just might not have the filter. You might have backed out. There you go. So it's the blue guy. So do you see that little symbol that looks like a little sideways arrow?
Yep.
So anytime you see that, when you use that ability, you're going to turn your card sideways. You're going to tap it. Okay. On the vampire we had, it didn't have that, and it was 7 mana to deal the 2 damage and to gain 2. Right. If you had 14 mana, you could actually do that ability twice, whenever you wanted. Right.
Oh yeah.
Because the little vampire guy. Your mono black aggro.
Well, I think this was it. It was in this one. One of these little guys.
Yeah, that guy has a tap.
Yeah.
So example, if let's say you attack with him, right? So you attack him for 1, right? When you hit him, he's now tapped, so he's sideways. You cannot use his ability on him because he's already used. Because you attacked.
Yep.
Right? While on the flip side, that last card we saw that didn't have, or let's look at Goblin Bonnet, so if it's in your pool of cards you could take out of, far left, next to your Fanatic. So second card in. Top, second card. Yep. So that 1 red, 1 white ability, right? It does not have that little symbol. So you can do that as many times as you want, regardless of whether he is sideways or not. Because it does not need a tap to use it.
Okay.
Okay. It's just relevant to know, like, cool, if I attack here, can I still use this ability or not?
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense.
Or do I need to keep him back and block? Now, one of the things with kind of our talking of, like, how you can kind of interact in combat, if you take, let's go down 1 card. This is a good example of it. The Spear Spewer. Okay? Let's say you play him on turn 1. Okay? He can't attack, but because he has Defender. Right? But he has this ability that he can hit both players for 1 damage once a turn. Okay. If you play him, and let's say your opponent attacks you for 2, okay, you can block. Say, I'm going to block this your creature, right? So they have decided that they're going to fight each other. They're his 2 attack, 2 defense creature, and yours 0/2 Spear, right? But before damage happens, because you can tell it you want to do something after blockers have been set, and that they're going to fight each other, but before damage happens, you can use his ability and still hit each person for 1, and then they'll deal their damage to each other, and he'll die.
Okay.
So you can block, save yourself the damage, and still use the ability, because you can activate it kind of in that in-between, before one happens, but after the other.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Like I said, there's a lot of timing things in Magic. But that's like a good example of a scenario where that would be important. One other thing to mention from like another kind of half evergreen is haste, so your Fanatic Firebrand, it has charge. That's how I would think of it.
Charge, yeah, that I figured out.
Yep. Anything that has a tap effect. Okay. So the terminology that Magic uses is called summoning sickness, which is it doesn't have charge, which is you play your creature so you can't attack the turn you play it.
Yeah.
Just like you can't attack the turn you play it, you can't activate any of its tap abilities the turn you play it, unless it has charge, or in this case, haste. So if you're Chandra Embercat, the far right card, second row. So this one does not have haste, right? The turn you play it, you cannot add that one extra red mana. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Can't attack with it. It's just going to sit there. It's just going to be a 2/2 until your next turn, and then you could either attack or you could activate the ability and get the mana. Cool. I'm trying to think. Life totals. I assume you figured out the 20 life total. Have you figured out mulliganing? Because it's a little bit different than.
I mean, I figured out
how it works.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Cool.
The more you mulligan, the more you got to put back, the less cards you start with.
Yep. And you can do that as many times as you want until you have nothing in your hand. I don't recommend it.
What's a good strategy on that, I guess?
It depends on what you're playing. So the biggest thing is making sure you have like a good balance between lands and spells that you're going to be able to cast with those lands. So like a good example is if you had a 7-card hand, right? Your very first one you look at, if it has 2 lands in it and every other card in your hand is 4 and 5 mana, I probably would mulligan. Because you can't, if you don't draw a land, you're never going to cast anything.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not quite good enough. But if it was like 3 lands and you had a 2-drop and then a 4, a 5, a 5, that one I'd be more inclined to saying that's fine, right? Because I can at least cast the 2. If I ever draw a land, I can cast my 2 4s, right? And it sets me up to eventually cast my other things.
Makes sense.
But you really don't want a hand that does nothing, right? Is kind of how I would look at it. But some decks can get like this mono red deck, right? Which is all 1s, 2s, and just a small handful of 3s, right? If you have 2 lands with this hand, that's probably fine with pretty much no matter what you have. Because if you draw lands, right, then you can play, like, if your hand is 2 lands and then all 3s and 4s,
yeah,
right, that's probably fine. Because if you draw a land, you're going to be able to cast all the things in your hand. And if you don't draw a land, all you're doing is drawing 1 and 2 drops. In which case, you can play all of those, right? So it does depend on the deck. It's kind of like with mulliganing in Hearthstone. Like if you're playing like a druid deck, right? If you have all of your 9 drops in your hand and none of your ramp, you probably want a mulligan, right?
Yeah.
So it's very much a by feel type of thing, and it's very much by deck. Some decks, like if you're playing a zoo deck, you're going to be able to get away with keeping something very different than if you played like a ramp deck, right? They're just going to look very differently. So it's hard to just generalize, but make sure you can play your stuff is going to be my biggest advice.
Yeah. My mulligans in Hearthstone are pretty good. Looking at tempo.
Yeah, you'll pick it up quick.
I just didn't know if there was something key that I was looking for. But
not really.
Pretty much what I put together with it.
Cool. Outside of that, the last kind of stuff that because I think that's kind of all of the just kind of general philosophy stuff. They kind of need to know what's the big differences. Everything else is just going to be very deck specific and kind of intricate. I'm going to pull up your list of stuff you were like, cool, let's talk about, just see if there's anything I missed. There's the link. Mechanics, card type, play styles. Okay, so yeah, we can go over like kind of. So we went over most of the card types. A couple of things we missed were like enchantments. They're very similar to artifacts. They do kind of the same thing.
Yeah,
they're just classified differently, so different removal hits them. That's it. They just kind of sit there and do their thing on the side. They're not creatures. As far as like play styles, it's very similar to Hearthstone. There's really four for all decks will fit into 4 categories, which is your aggressive decks, which is going to be kind of like your zoo. You're going to have your
zoos, your tempos, your controls.
Yep. So lots of
combos
of
and
stuff.
Combos and memes.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, you have your combos, you have your control, you have your mid range, you have your aggro. So aggro is going to be zoo. Your mid range is going to be like your, I guess, mid range, right? Like if you think of like druid mid range.
Yeah, I play a lot of mid range. Well, I used to mid range hunters and
Yeah.
such.
So mid range is definitely still a thing, which is good against the control decks. And then you have your control decks, which are going to be your slow dirtily like priest, non-combo priest or non-combo like control mage.
And the really stupid warriors that if it
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
if it wasn't for the current meta of control warrior, I probably would have never looked at Magic. But
Okay.
I'm so pissed off at it's such a boring deck to play. I've got like an 80% win rate. I mean, it's because it's just boring, and the games go for 30 minutes. I can do, 6 rush games and be done in 3 minutes. It's just not worth it. But that's what everybody plays. So it's a pain in the ass.
Like, right now in Magic, so, and then you have your combo decks. So one of the big things is it's very much kind of a rock paper scissors, just kind of like it is in Hearthstone.
Which is probably why I usually play more on the tempo side.
Yep.
More on the tempo with a touch of combo to it I can at least stave off an aggro deck, but be able to burst down a control deck is usually where I like to play, somewhere in the middle, on tempo or mid range.
Okay, that makes sense. There's nothing wrong with that, but yeah, there's a kind of rock paper scissors in it, and how the format rotates, and it's kind of cool because in Hearthstone you don't feel it as much, but in Magic you do feel this kind of transition every month or so, where like you go from like cool aggro is really really good and it's killing everything, right? And so since aggro is good, everyone slowly starts transitioning into more of a mid range, so that way they can beat all the aggro, right? And then you then have all these decks and then so after a couple of weeks to a month, you see everyone's now playing mid range, which now means control's good.
Yeah.
Right? Like aggro is bad, now control is good because it's beating all these mid range. And then everyone switches to control, and now all of a sudden aggro is good. And it just kind of does this kind of rotation of stuff, which is nice because it just means that like you can get a wide variety of stuff to play. You just have to slowly kind of rotate with everybody. Yeah. And you'll see that as like and right now we're in the phase where control is actually really bad. It just everyone seems to be playing mono red and like super aggressive like zoo decks, and so you really don't want to be playing really slow dirtily control because you're just gonna die.
Yeah.
Like you can sometimes squeeze out wins, as you know, but it's just you're not gonna have a high win rate with your warrior deck when everyone's killing you on turn 3.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I use that as a broad example because I know that's not how the format in Hearthstone is, but
that's what it is now. The problem, and the reason why, if you haven't been back since the new expansion came out, they introduced some low end taunts on the control warrior. That
brutal.
Pretty much wipes out,
shuts those down.
Those aggro decks.
Like fantastic.
Yeah, and then once you get into turn 7 with Dr. Boom, the hero card, it's over. I mean, it's the win rate when you play that card goes up to like 80%, and it's ridiculous.
I was just stopping playing when that card came out.
Well, the new expansion's
which
fun.
I heard was a good
I've enjoyed it. The new expansion, they're nerfing that card. It's going to 9 mana, but I don't think that's enough because if you
I don't think it's enough either.
It's still.
You're usually playing it on turn 15 anyway.
Well,
so
if you play it on turn
who cares?
7, it's not really an issue until turn 10, 11. But after 11, it's infinite value.
Yep.
The rush mechanic, it's so broke.
Yep, it's real good. Cool. So those are kind of your deck archetypes. I'm very familiar with all of them because I've played over the years. I've played a lot of everything, whether it be kind of a tempo-y aggro, mid-range, that sort of thing. If you want some competitive lists, my recommendation for like websites to look up decks, which is kind of a cool resource to have, is there's this website called MTG Top 8. I'm gonna link it to you here. And if you head to that site and hit standard in the top middle blue bar, it'll give you they'll list all the standard decks. So just like how Hearthstone has standard and wild, Magic has formats as well that use older cards. Standard is always going to be what you're playing in Arena. There's nothing else currently. You then have Modern, which goes back about 12 years or so in cards. You have Legacy that goes back to everything with a pretty intensive, like, stuff is banned list. Because there's some really dumb cards out there. And then you have Vintage, which is your everything that's banned. It's Legacy, except that everything that's banned you can play exactly one of if you wanted to. So you can play all the broken stuff. You just can't play 4 of all the broken stuff. It's a lot of fun. That format is very expensive though. And if you ever see people playing it, I'd be surprised. I have a deck for it just because I've played for so long. But like, there's cards in that deck that are like multiple $1,000s a card.
Wow.
So people don't play it because it's expensive, because you have to have cards from the first like 3 sets of the game to be even semi-competitive.
Wow.
And they're just old and classic, and like it's kind of like with like the thing of like Pokemon, like that first edition Charizard, like you're playing like those cards in these decks. And because it's the first edition Charizard, it's super expensive, right? Like it has that mentality to it because it's been out for 25 plus years. So but yeah, so if you go to link and then click standard at the top on the left, it kind of gives you a breakdown of all the different decks and kind of breaks them down by archetype. So you have your aggro decks, your control decks, and your combo. And then kind of within those, you have a lot of the little arrows, or the percentages next to each deck is kind of its win rate. Or not win rate. How much of the meta it is. All of that should add up to 100%. And then the arrows just mean that, cool, since the last week when they re-updated everything, right, this has gone up in percentage versus down in percentage, or it stayed the same kind of proportion of it. So you can kind of see what's trending, and like the things with the green arrows typically mean these things are doing good currently, but it also means you're going to see more of them, so it might be better to play something that counters whatever those things are.
And that's why I see like high percent on top deck on aggro, but also control.
Yep. Exactly.
Each other.
Yep. So, and then if you click on any of those, so if you click like Orzhov aggro, right, it'll actually give you a list of decks on the left, and then if you kind of look through it, it'll tell you who played it and then what event they played in, and kind of what place they played in. So I typically find like something relatively recent that like was in, and all these are going to be things that top 8'd, so you're always going to get a good list pretty much no matter what you take out of here. But you can click on any one of them and it'll actually give you a list of all the cards that you can click on, read the cards, see what they do. And there's a nice little export button at the top that says MTGA. If you click it and then hit your language, it'll actually give you a thing that you can copy. Yeah. And then you can just import, and then all of a sudden you have that deck available.
Okay.
So then you can open it up and see, what all am I missing from this? Which is nice, so that way you don't have to like manually go through and type all the cards out. So it's kind of like Hearthstone. They have the deck export. There's websites where you can pull decks from, same sort of thing. But this one's nice and convenient because you can click on all the cards and see what they do and whatnot. From like a meta standpoint, I kind of sent you a list of like the type of decks that are kind of good for each of those archetypes. It sounds like you prefer kind of the mid-rangey tempo stuff that's kind of good against doesn't have any like auto wins, but it's just kind of good against a field.
Yeah, that's something that
type of things.
Something that can play well against both ends, aggro and control.
This is my kind of go-to aggro deck currently. I'm gonna paste a list, and if you just copy it and import it.
So if I copy the whole list, it'll import it that way?
Yep.
I went in there and where's the one that you did? This one here, and I manually did all of them because I didn't even think that it would do it that way.
Yep. You're welcome. I made it easy for you. So this deck, so here's the biggest thing, because we were kind of talking about the rotation. So rotation's happening.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things is that the more colors you play, the more you're going to be affected by the rotation because of the lands. If you scroll down to the multicolored land section where it starts like Drowned Catacombs, yeah, that area. So there's 3 types of lands. They all kind of have nicknames to them. from just kind of what they do. So like that one, you're looking at Overgrown Tomb. Okay. So when it enters, so I'm going to say there's kind of two main points on this land. I guess three. One is it's a green-black land, so it gives you two colors. Okay. It's one or the other, never both. But it gives you the ability of playing either black cards or green cards off of it, right? Secondly, is if you look at where it says land, it says it's a swamp forest. Okay. Now, if you look at Woodland Cemetery, which is the other green-black land, like two below it, if you notice, it says land, but does not say forest swamp. You see that, like right in the middle there, that difference? Yeah. So where that's relevant is if you actually read Woodland Cemetery, it says this comes in already used unless you control a forest or a swamp. Now, that does not mean a basic forest or a basic swamp, like the card forest, the card swamp, because Overgrown Tomb is a swamp and a forest.
Okay.
Do you see how that works?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's referring to just the basic forest.
Right. So if you say, well, so if you read basic forest, so go up to forest, look at the middle of the card. It says basic land - forest, right? That, where it says forest, that's what it's a typing of the land. Okay. With Woodland Cemetery, it is referring to the type of land, not the name of the land.
Okay.
Okay. So with Overgrown Tomb, even though the name of the land is Overgrown Tomb, right? It is still has that hyphen swamp forest. This is a swamp and a forest. So if you have Overgrown Tomb on your field, when you play Woodland Cemetery, it is going to come in unused. Because you control that Overgrown Tomb, that forest, that swamp.
I gotcha. Okay.
It's kind of confusing because there's cards that are also named forest and swamp.
And swamp, yeah.
So the Overgrown Tomb is both. Or Watery Grave is a island and a swamp. Because it has that hyphen, island, swamp. So if you had a Watery Grave and you played Woodland Cemetery, Woodland Cemetery says, do I have a swamp? And it says, Watery Grave's a swamp. Cool, untapped. Because it doesn't have to be both, it's an or.
Yep.
Make sense?
Yep.
So the nicknames we give these guys, so the ones that have the forest and swamp on it, or the double typing on it, we call those shock lands. The reason for that is there's a card called Shock, which is a 1-mana red instant that deals 2 damage to something.
Yep.
This deals 2 damage to you, so we nickname them Shock lands. So that whole cycle, the Watery Grave, the Overgrown Tomb, and the Breeding Pool, we would consider those a shock land. Because they all do the same thing. They're just different colors of the same thing.
Okay.
Okay. The other lands, the Hinterland Harbor, the Woodland Cemetery, the Drowned Catacombs, we nicknamed those check lands. Okay? Because they are checking to see if you have land. Magic players are really creative. That said, when rotation happens, which is going to be beginning of October-ish, okay, all of the shock lands are going away. We will no longer have them. Which, if you notice, is the majority of your lands in the deck, because they are better than the other ones. So, when as you're playing multiple colors, it's going to be one of those things where you have to kind of make that, you either make the investment of like, I'm going to play some multicolored stuff and I'm just going to eat the fact that I'm going to lose a couple of the lands, or you choose to play like 1 or 2 color decks. And it's kind of up to you. Like, it's all just a monetary thing, and I don't know what your situation is and how much money you're willing to put into the game.
Yeah.
But if you want to like say, you know what, I could care less if I get a month and a half out of this investment and I have a lot of fun out of it, it's worth it to me, cool. If you're like, it's a little bit too much money, cool. I can gear decks towards which way you want to go. This sort of thing is going to be a little bit more competitive, I think.
Probably a little bit more time before a rotation, I wouldn't mind. But, I mean, since you're right on top of rotation anyway.
Yep. Cool. Pretty much any deck we're going to play is going to have at least some amount of cards that are going to have... There's no avoiding it, sure. Right? Let me pull up... I'm going to pull up my decks here.
I don't know how these look. This is where one of my coworkers threw me. Because I was asking him about rotation and everything. And what's coming and what's staying. and this is one of the ones that he showed me.
When did this come out? June. Okay. Yeah, Bant Scapeshift's really good. Bant Scapeshift is probably the best control deck in the format right now. I have a. Let's see. I'm curious from a rotation standpoint. Commons, so you're gonna lose Fairy and Scapeshift. Yeah, you're gonna. So. Yeah, it's kind of like awkward just because there's just so many cards. All the good stuff's like feels like it's rotating out. Actually, I have an idea for like a competitive deck that kind of plays that mid-rangey feel. Let me find this list because I don't have it built currently, but I have it.
Are these decks that they gave us just?
They're all terrible. They're straight garbage. It's like when you go into Hearthstone and it says, "Hey, do you want to autofill this deck?"
Yeah.
That's what they gave you. So, I hope you didn't get your hopes up, but they're bad.
No, I mean to me it's just a whole bunch of cards. That
Free stuff, yeah, it's free cards.
Stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Let's actually, what do they have in this? Because this might be a good. I'm gonna go back. I'm like trying to find this post that I know we have. There it is. Found it. All right. I think this deck is pretty easy to use. I'm actually gonna send you 2 links here. Okay. The first one is just an article that kind of shows some decent decks and kind of what's going out of them and what you could add to replace it, which is nice.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
And then this other one is for a specific. I'm actually going to import this real quick and just see what all is rotating out of it, because I actually, like, without looking at it, I can't do it off the top of my head. Where did it... Okay. Nope, wasn't that one. Cavaliers. So in this deck, you're losing like every single rare in it. Dang it! The struggle's real. But yeah, so that list is pretty cool. There's actually a good chunk of articles on this website too. I'm just gonna plug it because I help manage people who do a lot of these articles and stuff. But very competitive people. It's more of a control-y deck. It's kind of a control tempo deck. It's kind of a hybrid. Okay. The Simic Flash. So it kind of explains like deck name, like what it does, and then you could then kind of correlate over that to the MTG top 8 to find lists in that article, because it doesn't actually have a link to each list. But I believe, yeah, if you go to the MTG top 8 and then click Simic Aggro, it'll give you a bunch of lists in here. I'm gonna grab
Simic Ramp.
It should be under aggro. It should be like the 6th one down on the left. 7th one down.
Oh, got it.
And then once you go in there, that kind of breaks it down, whether it's flash or just like an aggro. Yeah. This deck is a lot of fun. It's a fun like tempo-y deck where you do get to see a lot of that, like playing things on your opponent's turn, which is very different than what you'd be used to.
Is there a specific one in here, or is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, I'm gonna grab you one here. Give me a second. Each one is gonna be like very similar, but have like a couple of small card changes between them.
Sure.
So it's just like, let's find one that's gonna be just kind of a good, consistent learn versus something that's like tuned for this specific tournament. Because they're all tournament decks, so some of them will have that.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
This one's pretty good. I'm gonna look at like 2 more just to make sure that I'm not missing. Actually, really like this one. All right, we're gonna copy this, and then I'm gonna send you a list. And this is, I think this will be a good like learn deck because it has a lot of those like little effects and those timings and those sort of things that we was talking about. But it also gives you that tempo kind of mid-rangey game plan to it, and it's also pretty resilient to rotation.
Okay.
And most of the deck is commons and uncommons, which is nice from a like cost to build the deck.
Sure.
I think the Mulons, the Night Pack Ambusher, and then a couple of the lands are gonna be all your rares, which isn't much. So you're gonna lose 3 breeding pools, and that's it, pretty much, out of this deck.
And what would those be replaced with?
Whatever new land they give us, because they're gonna.
Okay. It's gonna be whatever.
Yeah, it's one of those lands go out, but typically they're going to give you another set of some sort of dual lands that just do things differently.
Okay, and these here are gonna stay.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, those just came out very recently, so. How many do you got? Yeah. I think you're probably missing just a couple. Oh yeah, you're missing a couple of rares from the lands actually, and because this is only a 2-color deck, this is where we kind of get kind of easy with it. Yeah. Go ahead and remove the 3 breeding pools. So and then I would add 2 more forests and an island. And if you just hit the number next to the forest and next to island, it'll actually add
2 more forests and an island.
Yep. So that replaces those. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have 10. So I would get rid of the two temples.
These here?
Of mystery. Yep. Remove those and 1 hinterland harbor. And then I would just go 2 islands, 1 forest this time. Just kind of reverse it. Yep. And now if you hit craft all, it should let you craft them. Now what are you missing? Okay, hold on. Let me look at your numbers. How many? Oh, you're probably just actually missing some of the common and uncommon ones now. Just because there's so many commons and uncommons in here.
Sure.
That's up to you if you want to crack packs or not to get there. I don't think it would take much for you to get there, but it's just a matter of.
Yeah, I could probably do that.
If you would do it, I would open M20 because there's a lot of cards in this deck that are M20, so you can just open some of them, which would be nice too.
Yeah.
Not to like make you buy packs, but. That's not what I'm here for. Hashtag not endorsed by Wizards.
Yeah, I can do that.
Cool.
It doesn't bother me.
No rush. Take your time.
How many?
It's completely up to you. Like M20 is the most recent set that came out.
Yeah.
So these aren't going anywhere.
What number of packs do you think it would do to get you there?
Bundles
that'll make it worth it? No.
Yeah. So the bundles there won't do it. Those are all just like cosmetic bundles. Like the things that make it worth it is within the packs is you get some free mythics and stuff when you get the 45 and the 90. They give you some extra stuff just because you're buying bigger ones. But otherwise everything else is just proportionally exactly the same. So you can like, if you wanted to, you could start as small as like, I would probably do at least 15 packs just to give you a good push to it. But it's one of those like, the worst case is you do 15 packs and you do another 15 packs. Like, it doesn't make sense to do, like, 6 and then 6 and then 6 and then 6.
Yeah.
So.
Are these extra things worth it?
They're bad. Like, those ones, some of them are actually good. That one in this case is not amazing.
Okay.
It's never going to be played. It's too much mana. But, like, if some of the each set will have, like, some sort of bonus card with them, some of them are actually playable. Like, that Tezzeret's fine. He actually can see some play. That one's pretty bad. That one's pretty bad. And
And
then
anything past
M9,
this is
any
all
past that's
rotating,
gonna
right?
rotate.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
So
I'll
yeah, let's start with like
there
15
real
packs and
quick,
see if
and
we
we'll
can
do
get there.
that.
Yep. Come on, you don't want me to get your credit card info?
It
Man, I could buy so many
it
coaching
actually
more
goes
sessions with me.
to PayPal.
Yeah, no, I know. I was giving you a hard time.
Oh, really? Actually, I guess I really didn't even have to. It doesn't even put the PayPal email address up there.
Yeah, it does it all, and I actually think it all opens in a separate little window too, so I won't even see it.
Oh,
But
because it's framed over. Oh, that makes
yep, it does that intentionally.
sense.
Hey, puppy. I'm gonna slide you that way a little bit. My dog is like sleeping on my feet. I thought I heard a couple of your dogs barking too in the background there a little bit ago.
Oh my God, yeah.
She's like constantly, God, can I shut up?
Well, they sleep until they hear a noise,
Yep.
and then
What type of dogs do you have?
Mom is a Victorian Bulldog, and we bred her with a Great Dane, so he's a Great Vic, and she's about 70 pounds. He's Odin. What are you now? 140, 150. He's a big boy.
Big boy.
Yeah.
My puppy would be a snap to them. He's about 20. He's only about 10 months old, but he's about 20 pounds.
She's
So a little itty bitty guy.
I think he's two or three.
Okay.
Four. And she's
Other than
4
that
or 5.
ballpark.
Oh, I didn't even see that before.
So what do you do for a living?
I'm the
Small talk while we're doing stuff.
director of business development and affiliate marketing for a web hosting company, InMotion Hosting.
Okay.
We're one
Very
of
cool.
the largest web hosts that you've never heard of.
Cool. Perfect. Never heard of him.
Yeah, well, that's the main brand is web hosting. I also do our web ventures, which we invest. I don't know if you know anything about web design or anything like that, but
Little bit.
WordPress.
Yep.
We buy WordPress plugins. So right now we own BoldGrid, W3 Total Cache, Ninja Forms, Gravity Forms.
Yeah. I use WordPress almost daily.
Yep, it's fun, but that's primarily what we do.
Got it. Makes sense. Very cool. Sweet. Let's jump in there and see how much closer we got. Let me take a look, because you did open like some of the spectral sailors and stuff. So let's make a tally. So let's just kind of hover over the cards, and I'm just gonna make a tally of like how many each things we're missing. So one uncommon. That was 2 more, so 3. Okay. That is 4 commons. Okay. 2 more uncommons. Got it. That should be uncommons. 7. Yep. 1 mythic. Yep. 3 rares. Got it. 4 more uncommons. Okay. 14. Got it. And then the rest are just lands, so we can tinker with those as need be. Okay, now go ahead and hover over your little wildcard guy. So we have way more. You were literally 1 uncommon short. So what I'm gonna have you do.
Oh. Let's say I could buy one more. Is it one more pack?
Yeah, it is actually exactly 1 more pack.
Yeah.
Just like screw it, let's just do it.
Just make it 3.
Okay, perfect. Literally 1 uncommon short. I'm like, you have to be so close. Like, you can't be off by much. Hey, like now you're over.
Are these duplicates? Is this what these mark? Like,
So,
if I got something that I already have, it would give me these as duplicates?
No, sometimes just in a pack, you will just, instead of getting a set common or uncommon, it'll just randomly decide that you get a wild card instead.
Gotcha.
Which is nice. Ooh, lands are good. That's what
Lands are always good.
lands of the colors are good. Sweet. Wasn't the colors we were actually hoping for, but we're not gonna complain. Cool. So now you should be able to craft. What? Oh, I know. Go to your sideboard, because we're gonna put. Because there's a sideboard here. Go ahead and remove all of those. Just remove them all. I'm like, wait a second.
Even I did the math there, and it came out.
It came out wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, it's saying, hey, something in this deck is not going to be playable.
Yeah.
Cool. Hover over your wild cards again, because I think we have some extra rares that you have. You have 2 rares. Cool. So let's get one more Hinterland Harbor. And then we're going to search, and we're going to do a Temple of Mystery. And do one of those. And you're going to have to say you don't have any, because... And then you're going to search the name again. It's the blue-green one. Cool. Now go ahead and hit craft. And then we'll remove 1 forest and 1 island, because we just added 2 extra lands. Yep, perfect. Now we're at 60 again. Sweet,
And
you have a deck.
These don't matter with all the stuff, right?
Yes, so like basic lands, you can have as many as you want.
So, I mean, this is equal to this, is equal to this.
Yeah, there's different art, that's all.
That's all it is. So I could have 10 different islands and 10 different forests.
Yeah, you could.
As long as I have the unlimited or whatever. Oh.
Yep, exactly.
What did I do?
You added a plains that you didn't have. Would have been real funny if it was one you did have, and then all of a sudden we just draw plains in the middle of your game, and I would have been so confused. All right.
What happens when it says like there's 61? It's not valid. Will it not let me play it, or?
No. So you can. So if go ahead and go into your deck. So the deck requirement is at least 60 cards. So if you add another forest and hit done, you can play a 61 card deck.
Okay.
That is allowed. I don't recommend it, because from a variant standpoint, the more cards you add,
throws off your curve. And would we just add a forest?
Yes.
Yes, it was 10
yeah.
8.
Yeah. Cool. So let's just go into home and we'll just start playing. And then I would change it actually to ranked instead. No reason. There's no reason to play a bot match. The bot's not going to play anything relevant.
Well, I'll just let's do 1.
Sure.
Just for the time's sake. As far as being able to look at the cards, because I really didn't look what was in there.
Don't know what anything does. Cool. I'm totally cool with that.
And I hate dragging out people that I play ranked. Even though at this level they're all probably. I've noticed that they're really slow. A lot of roping.
Yep. I mean, that's just always going to be a thing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
That's pretty
Okay.
hard.
So what your game plan is basically you're never going to do anything on your turn. Ever.
Okay.
So most of your things are instants. So I would actually go ahead and just keep this. This is fine. And I'll show you why here in a second. But so if you look at like Syncopate, Negate, and Lookout Dispersal. So this counters something. So if they cast something, you can say...
that's the other thing. What's pays X?
Yeah, so X can be any number you want. So you can be X is 0, you can make X 10. So if you notice in the mana cost, how it's a blue and an X. So if you have 4 mana total on your field, right, you're going to pay your 1 blue, and then you could pay up to 3 extra into it, okay? So if you pay 4 mana total, X is going to be 3. In which case, you're going to counter that spell unless your opponent can pay 3.
Okay.
X just being like a math variable.
So they're paying 3 mana. So they're essentially saying they're tapping.
If you pay a 3 mana card, you now have to pay 6 more. You have to pay 3 more on top of what you've already paid for it to play it. Okay. So now you have to pay 6. And if you don't pay it, then it just goes to your graveyard and you don't get it.
Okay.
Negate does the same sort of thing, except it definitely counters 100% of the time, as long as it's something they're casting that's not a creature.
Okay.
So planeswalkers, in other instances, other sorceries, artifacts, enchantments, anything that's not a creature, Negate can counter.
Okay.
And now if you look at Merfolk Trickster, this is the other big kind of keyword that you're going to see a lot on a lot of these cards, is that flash. Now normally you can only play creatures like a sorcery in your main phase 1, your main phase 2, right? Flash says you can play this anytime you want. So what you can do is at the end of their turn, you get to hold open all of your lands every turn, right? If your opponent casts something that you care about, you play one of your counter spells. So that way they don't get this thing that they're trying to do. You just shut them down. If they do nothing, they don't do anything you care about, or they play something stupid that it doesn't matter if it's on the field or not, then you get to put your creatures into play.
Okay.
So you're playing pretty much on their turn. Which is why I think this is a fun deck to play for someone coming from Hearthstone, because you never get to play on your opponent's turn. So, from looking at the hand from a land standpoint, you turn 1 every single time you want to play your breeding pool if you have it.
Okay.
I think technically you only have 1 in the deck, but you happen to draw it, so we're gonna play it. And the reason for that is it gives you the option when you play it to either pay 2 life to make it come in unused, or you can play it tapped. You don't have anything you can do for 1 mana.
Yeah.
Right? So since you're not gonna use it, enters tapped because let's not take life for no reason. Right? Now what that does is it makes sure you have a forest and an island in play. Right? So now your Hinterland Harbor, the one that checks if you have one of them, will come in untapped.
Okay.
You have a forest or an island. So I would guess, yep, yeah. I would play it. And then you're going to pass the turn. You're not going to do anything on your turn. Because all your things are instants, including your creature.
Reactive.
Yep. So let's read what your opponent has, because that matters. Okay. So here it's actually giving you a choice, right? So you could, anytime your opponent does something, they're passing you the potato, saying, hey, do you want to do something? Right? That's that priority. Mm-hmm. So right now, you have the option of the highlighted cards. So you could syncopate. And right now, if you do that, X can only be at most 1, because you only have 2 lands, right? One of them is going to be the blue, and then one of them can be that X. And if you do that, it's going to say, hey, I don't want you to cast that card unless you pay 1 more mana. Now, if you look, he has 1 more mana. So that doesn't make sense to do. As an alternative, we could play this creature, but that also doesn't really do anything here, right? Yeah. So I would just say that's fine. We'll just let his thing resolve. Now, he's going to gain his 2 life. That's also fine. We're going to let that resolve. He's going to go to combat, so he's in the enter combat phase. Totally fine. Let's let him declare attackers here. And now, so at this point, if you look, so read where it says pass, but don't actually click it. It says pass, go to blockers, right? Yep. So right now, we haven't said we want to block or not. Now, if you read Merfolk Trickster, this is where you get that kind of flash and that like in-combat tricks happen, right? Mm-hmm. When it enters, it loses all abilities and you can tap something, but you can put it into play. So if we wanted to, we could put this into play right now and then block. And your 2/2 would block his 2/2. So they both die, but then you'd save some life. And he's already committed. There's no way he can unattack. Yeah. Right? Personally, I would probably do that because next turn we're going to play this Planeswalker, that Mu Yanling thing, and we want to have him to have as few things as possible so she can live, because we don't want... Does that make sense? Yeah. We're trying to protect her because she has a life total. So we're going to put that in, and now when it comes in, it's going to tap something. Now his creature that he's attacking with is already tapped. So let's tap his other thing, because why not? And now it says, cool, now you're in blockers. Now do you want to block? Sure. Let's block 2. And then you can just finish your blocking. And now we have no mana, so now it's just going to kind of cycle through your turn. But did you see how we were able to do something after he chose what he was doing? Yeah. Which is cool. All right, so here you just play a land. They're all forests, so they don't matter. And then play that Planeswalker. This is one of the few things you will do on your turn in this deck. And now, from her ability standpoint, she only actually has 1 ability you can do when you first play her, which is... until your next turn, it's going to get 2 less attack, and if it has flying, it's going to lose it. She actually has a creature, so let's go ahead and click it, and we're going to choose the 1 creature he has, and it's going to become a 0/2. So now his only creature can't deal any damage, which is nice. So he kind of neutralized it for the turn.
Is there any way? I guess it's only per turn, right? Until my
until your next turn. Now it's back to a 2/2. Okay. So here you go ahead and you can play your forest. And now with the Planeswalker, so oh yeah, go ahead and read that guy. He's pretty nifty. Lots of text.
Yeah. Okay.
So the thing is you're never playing anything on your turn, right? Yeah. Is the idea. So every turn he's on the field, you're just gonna get 3/3 guys.
Do these, right?
So actually. Okay. Yep. So now here's the thing. So let's hit cancel real quick. Look at your Nightback Ambusher and see how big he is, because you want to be able to block. So he's a 4/4. Yeah. So your 4/4 can flash in after he attacks his 2/2. Because if you use the minus ability, right, she's gonna go to 1 life.
Go to 1 life. Yeah.
But you're gonna have the 4/4 creature that you can block with that she makes, and your 4/4 Nightback Ambusher, right? Okay. Yep. So you're gonna have enough blockers that she's still not going to die. So making the 4/4 is probably the best thing here. she would die still after doing that, then I would consider maybe plussing it again.
Okay.
Now, that guy has flash, so we're going to wait till his turn to play it. You're gonna hit next whole bunch. Yeah. See, this is the other thing, is it's not gonna auto skip through everything because you always have things you can do.
Yeah.
Because you do things always. So you're gonna get real good at clicking that next button. Cool. So he's gonna try to make your guy not do anything. Now it's an enchantment, which is a non-creature. So if you remember, we have that negate that only does things for non-creatures. So that's a great one to play here. So instead of playing our guy, let's try to keep our big dragon alive. Drake. It's kind of a dragon. And now it's like he doesn't even want to attack because then you just block and it dies. Cool. So now you can play your land. Doesn't matter which one. I prefer playing the ones that have colors. And then you can use your... Yep, exactly. And then you can use your Planeswalker. Again, she's at 1, so she can only use the plus ability. And then, you just lock down his guy. Now that it has no attack, now you can just go ahead and attack. I'd hit him for 4, right? You don't need him to block. Lots of next. And then, then just go ahead and end. And then if you play something we care about, we still have Syncopate. We have the Lookout's Dispersal. And if he doesn't do anything, then we just play the Night Pack. And you want to play it at the very end of his turn if we're gonna play it. So he's in combat still. So go ahead and just hit pass again. Now he's in his main phase too. Now it says, cool, now I'm at end step. The end of his turn. Because when you see that my turn, then you know that he's done with everything he's gonna do for his turn. And if I hit that, we're immediately gonna go to pass. And we don't want to do that yet. So let's play the Night Pack Ambusher.
As soon as we do that, it's just
Yep. Now, you can go ahead and play your land. So when you read Night Pack Ambusher, one of the things that it says is at the beginning of your end step, if you did not cast a spell in this game is very different than a spell in Hearthstone. In Hearthstone, it very specifically means like a fireball or a secret, like a non-creature spell.
Sure.
Okay. In Magic, a spell refers to anything that is not a land. So if you played that creature, that Bristlebrain Cutthroat, you would not get a wolf token.
Okay.
Because it is a spell you're playing. Or if you play an instant, you play a sorcery, you play a planeswalker, anything that's not a land, you're not getting any guys.
So even creatures are spells?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And that's an important clarification because that's how that works.
Okay.
Now with the Planeswalker, we'll start with her. So she's already on the field. So she's not casting anything. She's not playing a spell.
Yeah.
She's just using an ability. Now if we minus, she's going to die. Because she's at 3 counters, she'll lose 3 counters. So I say we plus her one more time. And the next turn we can minus her, right? Keep her alive, keep that going. And then I would just go ahead and attack with both. Because he doesn't have any creatures that are doing anything. You're going to hit him for 8. And then it's going to go to the end of your turn here. So you're going to hit end turn. And then you didn't play anything, so now you got a token. Which is what the Night Pack does if you didn't cast anything. Okay. But had you played the Bristlebane, the Cutthroat, you would have just got the Cutthroat and not the 3/3.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yep.
Cool. Keep passing. It looks like your opponent's just doing nothing because that's just kind of how the bot games go. But like, if he was doing anything, you have all these counter spells. Like right now, you could play that Syncopate for 5. Like X is 5. So if he only has 6 lands. So if he pays 2 mana, right, he only has 4 left. You can counter anything he plays.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. And now at the end of your turn, actually, so here, your Bristlebane Cutthroat. So with the Night Pack Ambusher, we'll clarify with that. So Night Pack Ambusher only does it for your turn. You can play anything you want on your opponent's turn. So since it's your opponent's turn, because it's at the end of his turn, let's go ahead and play your Cutthroat. Get more creatures on the field. Cool, now you go to your turn, and now we don't want to cast anything. But we can still activate our Planeswalker. So let's make a 4/4. And then let's attack him for a whole lot. Yep, and if he blocks your little Cutthroat guy to, like, trade, that's fine. He's still taking 11.
16.
Well,
I didn't see that.
the token you made doesn't get attacked back. and then we're just gonna pass the turn, and your opponent can't do anything, and you're getting a token. And then no matter what he plays, you have counter spells for it.
It's lethal, yeah.
Yep, so he's just super dead. And then, yeah, you just attack him and he dies. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, general game plan stuff, just... Your game plan is, I'm gonna make my opponent do everything on his turn. And if he doesn't do anything, I gotta put a creature into play. And if he does something, tell him no. So, yeah, this is probably one of the best decks in the format. I'd probably say this is like top 5 best decks currently. And as rotation proof, so I think it was just a good initial investment.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine.
So here, even though you don't have any green mana, right? You know you have green cards in your deck, but you can cast everything in your hand.
Yeah.
Right? And the Spectral Sailor does have an ability on it that you can draw extra cards with 4 mana, which you do have.
Which I have.
So if you get to that point, you can always draw extra cards to try to draw that green. So I actually think this hand is fine.
Okay.
That's one of those, like, while you are missing a lot of the things you kind of want, the hand, you still play everything out of it. So mulliganing doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So you can go ahead and play your island. And then Spectral Sailor, let's read him. It does have flash. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So anytime it has flash, there's almost never a reason to play it on your turn.
Yeah.
The only time you would ever kind of consider playing it on your turn is if your opponent was also playing like blue stuff and you're worried about them like countering it.
Okay.
Right? Like let's say you had a Nightpack Ambusher, and instead of them, like they could have a Syncopate, which could counter it.
Which could counter.
If they tap all of their mana, right, so they don't have any open, it might be worth putting it on the...
That, when it says counter spell, it can also counter these going down?
Creatures? Yes, it can.
Okay.
So that's fine. You just let that resolve. And then you go to your turn, or hit pass. And when it gets to the end step button, so the one when you get to the orange button, that's when you're going to play Spectral Sailor. Cool. Start by playing a land. And then here, again, has flash, so no reason to play them yet. Now, if you'll read Spectral Sailor, he has flying. So, and the vampire your opponent has does not.
Yep.
Which means if you attack, your opponent cannot block.
Okay.
So, there's no reason not to attack. So we're gonna send him in. Now, Merfolk Trickster, you're gonna go ahead and end turn, and he'll start doing his thing. So Merfolk Trickster, a good way to kind of when it says like that creature loses all abilities until end of turn, think of that as silence for the end of turn.
Okay.
Silence for this turn. So if you read his vampire, it has Death Touch or Poisonous, right? When he attacks, you can put in your Merfolk Trickster and make him lose Poisonous and Lifelink.
Okay.
And then block it.
Okay.
And then your Trickster still will live because you've silenced it for the turn.
So we're gonna pass.
Does that make
the
sense?
attacks though, right?
Yep. So exactly. So let him attack first, so that way he can't backtrack. Can't choose, nah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And he might not attack. We'll see. Okay, so he attacks, so now you're gonna play the Trickster. And you're gonna make sure you use the ability on the vampire. And now, so we played it, so we gave him the potato. Right? Cool. He said, I'm not doing anything. You targeted the guy, and now, yep. Now you can block. Now, if he had a removal spell, if he had an instant that killed a creature, right? Technically, when you targeted the vampire, you gave him the potato back, and he could have killed your guy before you blocked. So there was the chance for him to do that, but he didn't. And so his guy died, and yours lived because you silenced it. Yeah, losing all abilities is just silence. Cool, so yeah, we'll play a land. I would attack with your 1/1, and I would keep your Trickster back. So the Trickster did is, like, if your Trickster ever kills more than one thing, it did its job. Yep. So what we're probably gonna do is we're gonna block with the Trickster next turn. Like, my thinking is next turn we're gonna block with him. and then probably play. We want to get our cutthroats on the field.
Yeah.
Because then as you counter things, the cutthroats get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
we want to get them going. Yep. So we're just gonna end. But we're gonna play at the very, very end of his turn, just in case we want to syncopate instead. Right?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Just in case we have to counter that.
Just in case we have to counter something, that's why we're waiting. So I would block here. Yeah. Yep, so we're not going to put it in yet. So, yep, and then click and drag. Perfect. Then say block. Yeah, because after he attacks, he has his second main phase where he can also cast all of his stuff. So that's why we're waiting till after that phase has happened. Now, from a syncopate standpoint, we can syncopate for 2. Make him pay 2 extra for it. He has 2 mana. So, syncopating doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You want to make sure he doesn't have the mana to do it. So we'll just hit resolve. That's fine. That card is actually kind of hard for us to deal with, but we'll get there. Go ahead and play one of your cutthroats. Hey, we drew a green source. So now we're going to play the green source. And then I would just... Actually, I would probably attack with both. The reason being is we have another Bristlebane Cutthroat. So his guy gets bigger as he does stuff, just like how our guy gets bigger. We have another one that does that. He might not, right? So if he blocks, that's fine. But we really just want to start dealing damage to him because we are a tempo deck. We want to start applying that pressure. And if he does have something to try to kill our guys, then we can syncopate it. So he's going to block. That's fine. Go to next to damage. Yeah, we're okay with that. That's fine. And then we're just going to end. And again, we're just leaving open syncopate just in case. Because if he does play like some big 5 mana something, let's kill it, right?
Yeah.
The other cool thing is that once we get like the Bristlebane out, as we're holding up like syncopate, like let's say he just doesn't do anything, we can't counter anything, we just play our cutthroat. The next couple of turns, like here, okay, so here's where we're gonna start doing things, and it kind of matters. So right now he has no mana available, right? So syncopate for 1 will counter it.
Okay.
Now that said, we have 4 mana total, so we can cutthroat and syncopate for 1, right? That's 4 mana total.
Yeah.
So if you read cutthroat, hold on. Cutthroat says if you cast things while it's on the field,
yeah.
while it's on your opponent's turn, which it is, it gets bigger. So let's play the cutthroat first. Now let's syncopate it for 1. And then you're gonna hit the 1, and then hit the pay button. Yep. And then you can hit just pay again, and it'll do it automatically for you. Or if you wanted to manually tap it, you could do it. But now your cutthroat is now a 3/2 instead of it being the 2/1, right? It got bigger because you did it in that order.
Okay.
Again, this is an instant. We want to play as many things as we can on your opponent's turn because of our cutthroat.
Sure. So just island?
Yep, just an island, and then just crash on in. And yeah, one of the cool things is like with this is we have that Spectral Sailor. Yeah, you go and just attack. Yeah. You're good. That if we ever just don't have anything to do, we can always just draw a card.
Yeah, it's single card. Okay.
Yep, 1 single card for 4 mana, but we can do that as many times as we have the mana for. So if we have 8 mana, you can draw 2 cards every turn. And we're actually starting to get kind of close to that. So if he does just start killing all of our stuff, we can still just keep drawing a bunch of cards and we could care less. Make sense?
Yep.
So we got a good redundant game plan going here.
Just with
So what I would do, I would just go ahead and let's play Anticipate, because we could hit a counter spell that counters it here, right? One, it's gonna make we're planning on playing it anyway.
Yeah.
We really don't want another land. Either one of either the Night Pack or the Planeswalker are both good, because they both kind of do different things. And they both are a threat, which is what we want.
Yeah.
Personally, I would take the Night Pack Ambusher. The reason for that is it makes your Cutthroat bigger.
Yeah.
Well, the other one doesn't. Otherwise, it really doesn't matter. Cool. So if you look at it, we have 5 mana. We're never doing anything more with 5 mana, right? Or we're only gonna pay 4. So playing the island doesn't help. So we might as well play the land that comes in tapped, right? Because it always comes in tapped. Now, scrying is you look at the top card of your deck and you decide, do I want this or not? If you do, you keep it on top. Otherwise, you can put it to the bottom of your deck. So it helps you kind of make your draws a little bit better. So if that was a land, for example, we would put it to the bottom.
Throw it away. Yeah.
In this case, it's not a land, and this is actually just a counter spell on a creature.
On a creature. Yeah, it looks like a pretty good card.
So we're gonna keep that one. We want that guy. That said, we're gonna go ahead and just attack in. There's no reason not to attack for 5. Again, we're playing tempo, so we might as well just crash in. And go ahead and hit next.
Oh.
Yep, lots of next button, and then we'll just end. Yep. Now, one thing that I wasn't looking at when we were looking at the cards to pull is you actually don't have 2 green mana yet, and that Night Pack Ambusher requires green.
Yes.
So you just did get the green source. You have the temple,
Have
right?
the temple,
So you'll have it next turn,
but I couldn't play it.
but you couldn't play it this turn even if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, we actually should have taken the Planeswalker because we had the blue mana to do that, and it would have given us something to do. But it's all right. I don't think it'll matter. We're really far ahead.
Yeah.
And instead, we're just gonna draw an extra card with Spectral Sailor, which will show you how those activate and stuff too, which is nice. Cool. Just pass. He's gonna attack you for 2. Or not. Okay. Cool. So before you go to your turn, just click on Spectral Sailor. And now you're going to draw an extra card. Perfect. Ooh, that's a good draw too. So go ahead and just play your island. So it's another one of those cutthroats. And then with that, go ahead. I would just attack for 5. Apply your pressure, because nothing's going to die. The reason why the Cutthroat was a good draw is you can play Cutthroat and your 4-drops, because you have enough mana.
Yeah.
So you can do everything. And then both Cutthroats will get bigger. And then if you need to counter something, you have the Frilled Mystic, and if you don't need to counter something, then you play the Ambusher, because he's just a better creature. Okay, so here... he's gonna try to kill your guy. I would play the Frilled Mystic. I think your guy is more important. And then when it enters, you get a target, and you're gonna say, yes, I want to take that action, because it's a may. You're allowed to counter something if you want. You do not have to. We're definitely going to. Now, unfortunately, this was on our turn that we're countering it, so your guy didn't get bigger.
Yeah.
But he's alive, which is bigger than he would be if you didn't.
Exactly.
And then we'll just pass. He's pretty dead. It's gonna be real hard for him to get back from this. It's definitely possible, but unfortunately, if we had 1 more mana, you could activate Spectral Sailor. We're close. Can almost draw all the cards. Okay, that's fine. So he's gonna play a big Planeswalker, which gives everything he has lifelink. And then he can deal damage to us and gain some life, or he can bring back a creature. Which he does have, so that's fine. He's gonna bring back his little 1/1 lifelink Death Touch dude. So you're just gonna hit resolve.
Oh.
Yep. It's weird habits to get into is that you have to click OK like a million times. Unlike Hearthstone, where they just do their turn and then it's your turn, you do your thing.
Yeah.
It's because you interact on both, you're constantly, okay, yes, you're good. You're still good. Yep, just keep passing. And then go ahead and play your cutthroat. All right, so 4, 5, 5, 6, 7. So if you play that island, you actually have 8 mana. Okay.
Yep.
What I would do is I'd play that, and I would actually start by and here's one thing that's also interesting about Arena is when you hover over a card. If you hover over Spectral Sailor, you see how it's highlighting all your islands?
Yeah.
That means it's going to tap those islands instead of tapping anything else. And in this case, that's fine because that's what we want it to tap, right? Because we want to keep the green open for the night pack.
Yeah.
If, let's say, it was hovering over one of your forests, so if it tapped it, you wouldn't be able to play your night pack. You would actually manually just click all 4 islands.
Yeah, so that was an option in there to take off auto tap.
Yep. You can do that even with auto tap off. You can still do it.
So we'll go ahead and draw here.
Yep. Let's draw first because it's kind of like with playing Warlock.
Okay.
Draw first. Make sure there's nothing you want to do, and then yeah, I would just attack everything at him. He's gonna block and kill some things, and that's fine. We really could care less about his Sorin, right? So he's probably gonna kill the 5/4 and the 3/2. And you're just gonna hit okay. And now all the things had lifelink, so he's gonna go down to 4, and then he's gonna go back up to 5. And then you'll just end your turn. And then on his turn, you'll play the night pack, which is gonna make your guy bigger, and then you're just gonna let night pack just kind of do its thing till he dies. I don't know how he beats you. Just like if you just literally do nothing for the rest of the game besides draw 2 cards every turn and let night pack make a 3/3 wolf, I don't know how he wins. Right? Because like that's where you're at, right?
Yeah, it is.
Night pack's gonna make a guy. I'm gonna hold open and negate. So if you have any removal spells, it's just gonna counter it. And if you don't do anything, I'm just gonna draw 2 cards. Don't know how you win. Cool. Go ahead and hit resolve. He's gonna bring back his little 1/1 lifelink Death Toucher guy. He's gonna keep doing that as long as he can. We really could care less because our guys are just gonna be huge. That's pretty good. All right, that's fine. We don't have any counters. So every time he blocks with his vampire, that a Johnny guy is gonna get bigger. Just like how every time you play something on your turn, the Bristlebane.
Makes sense.
Yep. What else do you have? He obviously can do something, or he's just cool. So this is an interesting one where like playing the night pack's really good here, but on the other side he can. So if you read the Sorin, he's either going to kill his little 1/1 vampire guy and kill your cutthroat. So I think we actually negate this. I think this is one of those that this one's good enough that if he gets it down, it's going to be kind of hard for us to stay in it. And we're not in any rush, so we might as well.
Yeah.
If only you had 4 green mana. So here what I would do is I would actually just attack just with the Sailor. Because you want to keep your Bristlebane alive and he has the poisonous guy, right?
Yeah.
So if you attack with the Cutthroat, he's just going to block with the 1/1, and that's bad. So we're going to send the Sailor, and we're going to hit his Sorin.
Okay.
So he can't bring back his other guys.
Bring it back again.
Yep, exactly. So, yep, just the one. Perfect. And then next. And then I would draw a card on your turn, because again, we're only playing Night Pack currently. So if we draw a land, we'd like to be able to play the land.
Okay.
This is the thinking. If we draw anything else, perfect. Go ahead and play your land. Because if we do get to having extra green sources, extra mana, that's more cards we can draw every turn.
Yeah.
So we do want to play those lands every turn if we can.
Yep.
So if we're not doing anything else with the mana, no reason doing it on his turn.
Okay.
And then we'll just end. Yep. So you have the Night Pack when playing Night Pack on his turn is better than playing it on our turn because we have Cutthroat. And then it's also like, so once you get both Night Packs out, all of your wolves are going to be 4/4s, and then your Night Packs itself are going to be 5/5s. because they're also wolves.
Yeah.
Everything's gonna be huge.
Is that an aura, or is that like at cast?
Yes, yeah, it's kind of like an aura. So yeah, it is a static thing that is happening. All werewolves, while this guy is on the field, is getting that effect.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of like in Hearthstone where you like give all your paladin 1/1s +2/+2 forever. Like they get that for as long as they're alive.
And we're gonna let that go. Right.
Yep, there's nothing you can do. Yeah.
The weak
It's gonna make his guy a little bit bigger, which is fine. Like, the thing is, at this point, all he really can do is make his Ajani Pride mate really big. But he's never gonna kill us with it, because it does not have that trample that we're talking about that being... So we can block with a 1/1, and he's not gonna kill us.
Not gonna do anything.
And our game plan is we're just gonna go really wide. We're just gonna make a ton of wolves.
Yeah.
Until he dies. So... Cool. Yep, just pass. He probably won't attack with anything. Yep, pass. And then when he gets to the point where it says end turn, then you're going to play your ambusher. Cool. Now you tap to your mana. Cool. He's going to kill your guy. That's fine. Would rather him kill that than kill your ambusher. Cool. So mana-wise, we have 6, 7, 8, 9 total. So we actually don't have... So we don't have enough mana to play Night Pack and Essence Scatter and draw a card.
Yeah.
So I would wait till next turn to draw your card. Or till his turn to draw the card.
Okay.
Right, in case we want to Essence Scatter.
Okay.
So I would just... I would attack his Sorin again for 1. You really just don't want him to bring back his other creatures that he has.
Yeah. Oh, just this one.
Just the, yep.
Yeah.
Because otherwise he blocks with the poisonous guy on your wolf, and that's bad. We want we literally just want that wolf to sit there for like the rest of the game. Until he's dead with you attacking with it. Yep, just end, and then you're gonna get a little wolf. And then if he plays a creature, we're gonna play Essence Scatter, because Essence Scatter says counter a creature, and only a creature. If he plays anything else, we don't counter it.
And since it's the opponent turn, it doesn't matter with him.
Exactly. Yep. So Soren's fine. He's just gonna use the plus because he doesn't want it to die. It's gonna make the Ajani a little bit bigger. Still fine. We could care less about a 5/5 currently. Okay, so that one is a non-creature. Even though it's making tokens, it is a sorcery card he is playing, right? So what I would do is I would start by drawing a card here, because that's the only card he has in his hand. We know everything he's doing, right? There's no way he's going to kill anything. Cool, so now we have the option of playing Frilled Mystic if we want to counter it. Now, do we care about 3 1/1s?
Probably not particularly.
I don't think so. I don't think so either, because we're just going to make more wolves. So I would rather just let that resolve, and then play the Night Pack and keep the Frilled Mystic for future if we need it. Cool. And then if you hit the little arrows in the bottom right, if you have nothing else to do, you click that guy, it'll say, oh, there you go. You click it on his turn, what it'll do is it tells the game, I'm not going to do anything else till my turn. So that way you don't have to keep kicking next.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do something at the very end of his turn, you have to just keep clicking next. Go ahead and just play your Forest. And so now you have the mana to Spectral plus Frilled plus Essence Scatter.
Yeah.
So let's go into Spectral on your turn, because there's no option making, right? And then we're just going to keep those up in case we need them for next turn. Let's go ahead and just hit him for 1 again, and then we're going to make a lot of wolves.
Hit the this guy.
Yeah. Yep. Just kind of keep rinse and repeating, because again, we're not under any pressure of dying, right? So let's just keep him from being able to do something that'll win him the game, and then we're just going to make 2 4/4s every turn for the rest of the game. And just leave open counter spells. So his board is never going to get better than this for the rest of the game. And all we're going to do is just keep making 4/4s. Now, the thing is, all of his things have lifelink. So if you attack, you have to remember that for every point of power he has, he's going to gain a life. So right now, he's going to gain 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So really, he's at 20 life, if you think about it.
Yeah.
So we do need... Cool, here, he's playing his card out of his hand. Let's go ahead and counter it. Personally, I like countering it with Essence Scatter. because that one is only creatures, while Frilled Mystic will counter anything.
Everything.
So use your narrow counters when they hit something, and use your He's like, okay, I can't do anything. Fine. Sweet.
Cool.
Fun stuff, fun stuff. Cool, we'll kind of wrap stuff up then. I'm cool going a couple minutes late, just to final thoughts, that sort of thing. Any glaring questions, concerns, grievances, opinions, anything like that on your mind?
No, I think that was very informational.
I know I info blasted you for like an hour straight.
Yeah, I've got some notes.
Sweet.
Is there anything in this? This is what I'll concentrate on this deck. Play it for a little while, and then probably ping you again.
Yeah, so the main thing with this from a meta standpoint, and that's what, like when I was saying, like, cool, some decks will play like slightly different variations of it. Really, the big variations is going to be like how many negates do you run versus how many essence scatters do you run. Because so right now you're running 4 creature counters and 2 non-creature counters. Those numbers very easily could be the other way. Yeah. You could run 4 creatures or 4 non-creatures and 2 creatures. Like, just flip-flop them.
Yeah.
So it's 2 and 4 instead of 4 and 2.
What you're seeing more
depending on what you're seeing. Same sort of thing with, like... And the other thing is, like, sometimes instead of running Unsummon, people will play a card called Blink of the Eye. Which is a 2-mana version, but it bounces anything versus bouncing a creature.
Okay.
So if you're seeing a lot of things that don't have creatures, right, going 2 less essence scatters, and then plus 2 negates, because they're playing a lot of non-creature stuff, right, and then change those unsummons to Blink of the Eye.
Okay.
Which is just another common, so it shouldn't be too bad to get. But otherwise, like, everything else in the deck is pretty just standard. It does all the things. If you do end up cracking more packs, really liking this deck, and you want to make it a little bit more consistent, having the colored lands is nice. Just so that way you don't have to worry about not having double green for Night Pack Ambusher. Because had we played with 3 more Breeding Pools and 2 more Temple of Mysteries, chances are probably 2 more of those lands we had at that point that were forests would have also just been a blue and a green land.
Would have been both. So we would have been able to play that out.
Exactly.
Even though we pulled it on the next turn anyway.
Exactly. Like, had we not pulled it, we pulled another island. Like, we would have been stuck and it would have sucked.
Yeah.
So, but that's that thinking of, like, it does make it a little bit more consistent. I think in the lower ranks, that small change isn't going to matter too often. And, like, the breeding pools will rotate.
So, I mean, it's probably fine not to be used to seeing that there anyway.
Yeah. It's like I said, with rotation stuff coming up, I'm not super worried about you play. And, like, if you're not really grinding to the best top 1,000, which I don't expect you to because you just started playing this game, you do not need 100% optimization.
Yeah, sure.
Having 90% optimization, where you're playing the correct, like, actual cards in the deck, and not worrying about the lands too much is fine, as long as, like, if you were playing a 3-color deck or a 4-color deck, which you can do, right? I would say your lands are way more important, because otherwise half the time you're not even going to be able to cast your stuff.
Yeah.
But like 90% of this deck is just blue.
Oh, what's the indicator on, what do they call them here? A common, uncommon, rare, and mythic rare. What's the indicator on the card?
Yep. So what it is the color of the little symbol on the far right.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
So black is going to be common. So if you look at Essence Scatter, that's going to be a good example. So, okay, yeah, if it's Essence Scatter, yep. So that how it's a black symbol there.
Yep.
Versus if you look at Merfolk Trister, it's a silver symbol. That's going to be uncommon.
Okay.
Night Pack Ambusher is going to be a gold, which is your rare.
Okay.
Like Frilled Mystic is going to be another uncommon, so it's that silver. And then your Mu Yanling Sky Dancer Planeswalker 3-drop is orange, which is mythic.
Okay.
So that's what that indicator is. So all of the lands you're missing are all gold, which is rares, which is why we don't have more of them, because we're out of rares. But yeah, most of this deck is commons and uncommons, which is why it's a nice budget deck that also isn't going to rotate. Like, you didn't have to go spend $200 on packs to be able to build this, which is nice.
Yeah.
And it's competitive. This is one of those decks that, like, I don't play this a lot just because like from a playstyle standpoint, it's not my preferred. Um, but it's really I hate playing against it.
Yeah.
It's so obnoxious.
Yeah.
I'm like, just stop countering my stuff. I just want to play the game. Um, so it's really good. It like while I don't play it, I recognize it's very good.
Yeah.
So
No,
sweet.
it seems good. I like it. I like the counter and screwing with other people's. Everybody's got a plan, and if you can screw with their plan, that's always a
It's always fun.
yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, if you need anything else, you have any other thoughts, questions, you're always welcome to Discord me, just random questions.
Okay.
I don't mind the every once in a while, like, hey, I attacked with this creature, my opponent blocked, and they're both 2/2s, and mine lived and his didn't. What happened? Uh, and me being like, oh yeah, that's first strike. Read that ability. Type answers anytime. Feel free to shoot me messages.
Alrighty.
If yeah, and I try just so you know from like since you've scheduled stuff, I typically update my schedule like Thursday nights on Gamer Sensei
Okay.
because I work actually at the Apple's like an Apple store,
Alright. Cool.
which while I don't actually do a lot of sales stuff, it is technically a retail store, so my schedule's all over the
Yeah,
place.
I hear you.
Um,
I've done the reselling.
so yep. So that in mind, my schedule is different every single week. So usually Thursday nights going into Friday, I'll update it from like so Thursday night this week, I'll update it for the 30th through the 5th.
Okay.
So that way you know like if you come in on like Wednesday trying to schedule for the next couple of days out, just shoot me a message and say, hey, when are you free? Because
Okay.
it's not up to date and live. Um, I really wish Gamer Sensei would let me put like a month schedule in there because I have my schedule for like the next month. I just have to do it week by week by week, and it's obnoxious.
Yeah.
But yeah,
My
minor things.
my Overwatch guy. We hire a guy off of there. I guess that's the other thing is I'm in charge. Well, number 3 on the totem pole for an org, primarily Overwatch. So we're
Sweet.
organizing all kinds of stuff, and one of our teams pays a coach out of there, and I actually handle the booking and everything for him because I know him. I know Shifty
Okay,
from a
cool.
while back, and it's a cool site. I like it, but yeah, he's the same way as you. Schedules change all the time.
Yep. Yeah, no, I'm just as some like other background stuff that I didn't really explain at the beginning because it wasn't super relevant. So like that link that those links to those articles I sent you, that Team Rankstar,
Yeah.
that is a card game based esports organization. So all of the like card games, so Hearthstone, Magic, there's like Eternal, the Elder Scrolls Legends, there's a whole bunch of like card games that are all digital format, like in that esports vein. Um, we have like an organization that's built around that, and I'm like, I guess fourth in the totem pole. I do a lot of back end stuff. So I'm the captain of our Magic team, where there's about 10 of us. So I run the whole team. I do all the recruiting, the team practices, all that good stuff. A lot of the coaching and things with that. But then I also do a lot of the like the social managing, the sponsor finding sponsors, and all that other stuff because it's still a smallish org. So there's just like everybody does a lot of
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, it's funny because
So
my specific team in there, I play as well.
yep.
And I think it's 4 people on our team are all in org roles. The community, 2 of them are community events. One's the social. I do our
Uh-huh.
website and I do our tournament organization.
Yeah. I do that's what I was saying is like when you're like, oh yeah, I do WordPress plugins. I'm like, oh yeah, I use that on the daily. Why? Because we post all of our articles through WordPress, and so I'm all constantly in there, and I'm editing and I'm changing stuff, and or like we're actually running a Magic the Gathering tournament like series all next month that's free to enter. Um, that's almost all full, which is kind of nuts.
Wow.
But I actually it's really funny. So I've been doing coaching on gaming. Like I actually did some coaching for like League of Legends and stuff when like I had a bunch of friends who've been playing since like since the game came out, and they're like, "You got to play," and I'm like, "I'm so bad at these type of games." So I hired a coach to just like give me the basic rundowns of stuff, right? And I really liked the platform. And then when they like added Arena, I'm like, "All right, I got to do this." So I've been doing this for probably 4 or 5 months now since like they added it, and I've been just absolutely loving it. It's a blast. But when I was looking for sponsors for this tournament series, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna reach out to Gamer Sensei. So they're actually sponsoring our tournament series
Oh, that's
from like a
cool.
cash standpoint. So we're doing a like a $1,600 prize pool series, like free to enter, free to play in tournament through Gamer Sensei, and a collaboration between my organization to run it. Um, so if you wanted to play
I didn't even
something,
think about them. as a sponsorship source. That's pretty
Right.
cool.
But I reached out to him and he was like, oh yeah, like I haven't spent like much money doing any sort of
Oh, I was about
advertising
to
because
say
they
I
just,
do sponsorships and advertising through my company. That's part of my job, and I have a budget. If I don't spend that budget every year, they start taking it away. So something like
yeah.
that. If I'm like, oh shoot, I've got money, I sponsor stuff all the time that I had no plan of just because somebody emailed me and I was like, oh yeah, I've got that
Yep.
in
So
my
I literally just
budget.
reached out to him, and his response was, "That's actually a fantastic idea." Because like he's like, "Give me more details. Give me like a breakdown money wise, what kind of eyeballs you're expecting, like what kind of like that sort of thing." Gave him the whole kind of spiel, like what we were planning on doing, what we were expecting, like that sort of thing, how much we were looking for to like run the whole event. And he was like, "Cool." So I haven't spent any money at all market like because he does a lot of marketing and like advertisements and that sort of stuff for all of his other games like League and Overwatch and all those stuff that are really really big, right? Because that's what people are typically drawn towards. And he's like, cool, I added Magic there because I had a lot of like people requesting it, but it hasn't like paid as much. Like he hasn't had as many people signing up for it as he was like expecting it to.
Is
And
it
he's like,
still
it does.
kind of
It's
new?
yeah, it is.
I figured because
Yeah. Uh,
Google hasn't been nice. I mean, I've had to look at paper articles because stuff on the arena is pretty limited. And I
yeah.
realize it's
Arena is
probably
still in its beta. It's been out since I want to say October, November. So it's like less
okay.
than a year old.
Oh wow.
So it's very, very new. But it's one of those like and people from like a coaching standpoint, like it's a card game. There's not a lot of people looking for coaching for card games. Like he has Hearthstone out there and is expecting it to be a little bit more reminiscent to how his Hearthstone revenue and stuff was looking. And it's just a little low. And he's like, I just haven't pushed any like sponsorships. So I just think that people don't know that it's there.
Yeah.
Right. And he's like, instead of me pushing like Twitter and Facebook ads and stuff, here, let me just throw that money I was gonna spend in the next couple of months on those advertisements. Let me just throw it at you guys and advertise me.
Yeah. That's a
And
especially if you have eyes and participants.
yep, our
Well,
website
and
over the course
I
of a
think
year gets a
Magic.
couple million views and stuff. Like we're really big in that card game.
I think they
Like
could do more revenue with this than Blizzard does with. Now, of course, Blizzard's all their marketing dollars is in the Hearthstone League and whatever
yeah,
the Grandmaster Tour and all that stuff. But I think people, if I'm looking at who the players are, if you're taking people off of paper and into this game, they're used to spending money and good money.
yep,
That this could be, they can make a lot more revenue through Magic than Hearthstone does for Blizzard. Because
yep.
those people
I
are
I
all free to
100%
play.
agree.
Everybody I know that's on Hearthstone is, for the most part, free to play.
Yep, they might buy a couple buy $50 worth of packs, like buy their bundle or whatever when a new
Yeah.
set comes out, and then just grind free to play from the rest. But yeah, no, 100% it is, and it's really funny because the Magic players are very much like, oh yeah, that's like what I said. I was like, cool, I have a vintage deck. It's literally like in the 5 digits.
Yeah.
It's cardboard. It's 5 digits of dollars. Like, yep, it's money. I'm just gonna spend it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Like type of mentality to it because I've been doing this for so long, and it's just that's the mentality of Magic players. It's just everything's gonna cost money. And so coaching and stuff, I think there's a big market for it from like the tournament standpoint. So we're doing like four tournaments over September, every Friday night. So Magic, from like a paper standpoint, one of their big like tournaments that they do to like draw people in and keep people playing is what they call Friday Night Magic, and literally like all the little like hole in the wall card game, board game stores like all over the country. Every Friday night they'll hold like a $5 entry standard tournament, and you just play, right? And typically they'll put prize money in, like all the $5 goes into like packs for people who are winning and doing well, or everybody gets a pack and the rest goes into the prize pool. Or each store does it a little differently from prizes, but they do some sort of Friday Night Magic, and it's one of their big like marketing things that Wizards does is to keep people playing every single week and
Yep.
constantly wanting to get the new cards and doing those things, right? And so we were thinking, well, there's nothing like that in Arena. So the first 3 Fridays of September, we're doing like a Friday Night Magic on Arena for all the people who don't want to leave their house or who have a collection on Arena but
Which
don't
is
have
pretty much
physical
everything
cards,
now.
which is everything now.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's 120 each, so we have 3 of those, right? One each day, each Friday, the first 3. $200 prize pool, no entry required. So you just first place gets $100, and then right, something like that. I don't remember what the breakdown is. I'd look it up. But like first place gets like $100, second and third get like 50, something like that, right? We're putting like $200 towards that prize pool. And then for each of those events, no entry required, and you just get to play. And it's Swiss, so you're not getting knocked out. You can play as long as you want, just have fun. If you decide you want to leave, drop go leave, right? But super casual, relaxed with some money on the lines. We get some competitive players. We'll get the casual players. We just want people playing and eyeballs on it, right? Each of those are 128 people. We launched the kind of marketing for it probably for about a week and a half ago. Of the first one is already has a 20-person wait list on it, so we've already like 150 people signed up for it already, and it's been like a week.
Wow.
The second and third one are both sitting at about 110 out of 130. So they're almost capped. And then our fourth event's going to be like our big main event. And it's actually going to be the 21st, that Saturday, Sunday. So it's going to be a 2-day event instead of just like a Friday night. What is that? Yeah, the 21st, 22nd. Free to enter, 256 players. So a little bit more player involvement. So it's a little bit bigger of a tournament. Day one's just going to be like 8 rounds of play people, and then we're going to take the top 8 from that, and then day 2 we're going to just do that top 8 bracket, right? And to winners, but it's $1,000 in the pool for that event, free to enter, just giving away $1,000. Come play.
That's amazing.
And we haven't actually released the link to sign up for that one yet, because from a marketing thing, we want people to sign up for all the small ones first.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Get the hype build up, get it out there, and then September 1st we're gonna drop the link for that one, and like we have like some promotional videos and stuff that we're fine tuning little details and stuff on to get that hype rolling. But like it's been like a week, and we've like 360, 380-ish people have signed up for these tournaments in a week and a half. It's just like, yep, this is something that the community wants. Guarantee it. And that's with like our small reach, right? Like it's real. We actually reached out to. We have a couple other like smaller sponsors for like giveaway stuff. So like we're gonna be streaming the events, and we're gonna be giving stuff to the people in Twitch chat and that sort of thing, which is cool. We reached out to Wizards, and they're sending us like pack codes and gems to just give to people.
Oh, cool.
Because we're like, this is a thing we're doing, and they're like, we love this idea. Please do this. So we have their backing too, which is awesome. So like with how successful it seems like this is going to be, there's a real good chance we're going to be able to snowball this into bigger and better things. Because this is like ground level, like you take a chance on us because we think this is good, and then it's just going to go, look how amazing this was. So
again, and then they double down, more money, bigger pools, more
people because bigger pools,
more sponsors.
Yep. So it's super exciting. So that's been my last like month and a half of like doing stuff.
Arena Rumble.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, if so with the smaller events, those links are on there for. They're at 3 different times because we wanted to be like time zone friendly. So we have the first one was Pacific time based, like a Friday night Pacific time. We have, I think the second one is EU based.
Yes.
So it's supposed to be like European friendly, and then the other one's East Coast, just so that way we kind of hit, if you can't play in these ones because you work, like we did them all East Coast time at like 6 p.m. Everyone on the West Coast isn't off work yet on a Friday night. So we wanted to be kind of friendly with that, because that's typically how it goes. Like Friday night at about 6 p.m. or so, that's when those events start happening. And we wanted to have that feel to it. So it's exciting. I'm pumped for it. It'll be cool. If you want to sign up, like I said, we have casual player. Like I have friends like in real life who are like, oh yeah, I play this game super casually. I haven't ever looked at a meta deck. I just play online and I have all my free cards and I've never dumped money into it. I'm signing up. Type players versus we have people who obviously are going to be gunning for the money, right? So if you want to have some fun and kind of see what a tournament structure looks like, you're welcome to.
I mean, September 20th, 6 p.m. Eastern time. That works in my schedule. I may do that. See what kind of play I get in and what I do until then.
Yeah. And like I said, if you need me, you're welcome.
At work that are a little bit more serious.
Yeah, share it around. Spread the love.
That's awesome.
Because the more eyeballs we get, the better. And it's just one of those, like, we have a smallish social media presence. But the random, like, even with the amount we have, we're already capping all of our events, which is exactly what we wanted, right? Can't ask for more than max out. So
exactly.
Sweet. All right, my man. I'm gonna let you go then.
Yep.
Call it a night.
Yeah,
And if you need me, let me know, and I'll be here. I'm down to coach pretty much anytime I am not actively working. So
That sounds good.
cool. Have a good night,
Appreciate
my
it.
man. Enjoy.
You too, man. Bye.